Time having arrived, I call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Brockton City Council Finance Committee to order. Will you all please join me in standing and saluting our flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk.
Item number 1, we have the appointment of Faye Slayton of Norwood Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Council on Aging Board of Directors. Invited, Faye Slayton.
Good evening, Ms. Slayton. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the council?
Yeah.
All right. Councilors, do we have a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Slayton.
Thank you.
Item 2, we have the appointment of Jason Andrade of Sawtell Ave, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Redevelopment Authority Board of Directors for a 3-year term ending in July 2029. Invited, Jason Andrade.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to the council?
Just that it's honor, and I hope to serve. Thank you.
Motion to recommend
Thank you.
favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Andrade.
Thank you.
We have the appointment of Lenine Pina of Launch Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Redevelopment Authority Board of Directors for a 3-year term ending in July 2029. Invited, Lenine Pina.
Good evening, Mr. Pina.
Good evening.
Anything you want to say to the council?
Looking forward to serving my city.
Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Pina.
Item 4, we have the appointment of Marissa Rodriguez of Summer Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Women's Commission for a 3-year term ending July 2029. Invited, Marissa Rodriguez.
Good evening, Ms. Rodriguez.
Good evening.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to the council?
Oh, I actually wrote a little statement, just, Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to serve on the Brockton Women's Commission. As a public health professional, community advocate, entrepreneur, and lifelong member of Brockton community, much of my work has centered on empowering youth and families, advancing health equity, and helping ensure that underrepresented voices are heard. I'm especially passionate about bringing greater awareness to women's health and chronic illness, while also creating opportunities for women to connect with resources, pursue entrepreneurship, and become more engaged within our community. I look forward to listening, learning, and working alongside the Commission and the City Council to continue making Brockton a place where women from all backgrounds feel represented, supported, and empowered to thrive. Thank you for your confidence in me.
Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez is my constituent. I support her nomination. We had the opportunity to talk about her willingness to serve on the Women's Commission. I think she'll do a great job. Thank you and good luck.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Item 5, we have the reappointment of Beverly Post of West Elm Street, Brockton, Mass. to the Women's Commission for a 3-year term ending June 2029. Invited, Beverly Post.
Good evening, Ms. Post.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to start a new term with the Women's Commission. Women's Commission has worked really hard, and we have a lot of great plans. We're really positioned for success for this year. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Post.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Farwell.
because of the importance of the topic, I would move to take item 25 out of order and hear it now.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to take item 25 out of order. All in favor? All opposed? Matters taken out of order. Mr. Clerk, item 25.
Item 25, we have a report of the Chief Financial Officer on the status of the finances of the City of Brockton. Invited CFO, Dr. Troy Clarkson, and/or his designee.
Good evening, Mr. CFO.
We've talked, Mr. President and members of the council, good evening. We've talked about a presentation like this for some time. I think it's vitally important. This presentation was not intended to coincide with my departure, but given that circumstance, it makes, I think, having a very frank discussion about the status of the finances in the city all the more important. So I won't say anything tonight in this presentation that I haven't in one way or another said to you from this table at some point over the last 7.5 years. However, I think having all of it in a compact presentation is really important. So what we'd like to do tonight is really give you an overview of the status of the city's finances as of today. We'll look at last fiscal year that just ended. We'll take a look at this current fiscal year that just began. We'll look at how the city is positioned in terms of our reserves and our free cash. Take a look at some outstanding liabilities that exist. We'll have a fairly substantial discussion about school finances. Since the deficit of 2023, that obviously has been central to our overall discussion on finances. So we'll talk about school spending in general and how it relates to city spending. And then finish up with a pretty detailed discussion about our pension obligation bonds, why we did it, the impact that it had, and the importance of having a negotiated agreement with the school department for them to pay their fair share. For members of the public that are watching, some of these slides are very detailed, but they're detailed on purpose. And so I will be asking our IT department to post this on the city's website tomorrow so that it's accessible, so that members of the public, because this is intended for them as well, have the opportunity to review the information, ask questions, and so that all of us can be informed about the important decisions that face the city, that face the mayor and his administration, you as the city council, and the school committee in the coming months and years. As in every year during my tenure, good thing I have the hard copy that's blown up so I can see it. We worked very hard to make sure that there were sufficient reserves at the end of the year. And that practice of being vigilant about watching spending with the city budgets has produced over the last several years consistent surpluses exceeding $10 million on an annual basis. And I'll be frank, it's those practices and the vigilance of our department heads and of my team that have led to those significant surpluses every year. I do, speaking of my team, want to give our budget director, Elvira Lopes, significant credit and thanks for the unbelievable work that she does in leading our team of analysts on a daily basis. They deserve credit for putting this presentation together and doing the research that led to be able to provide you the level of detail that we have tonight. So as we look to the close of FY26, as you can see, we do yet again expect a pretty significant surplus of about $12 million at the end of the year. That is the primary foundation to free cash. With FY26, we did actually have, though, a dynamic that we have not consistently had in the past, and that is our revenues falling short of anticipated revenues. Each year, we've estimated revenues very conservatively and been able to exceed those estimates. Right now are looking at a revenue shortfall, so almost 99% of revenues collected, but that shortfall is just shy of $6 million. That's due to two major factors. One was we did have an estimate for approximately $2 million in the sale of energy credits. You've heard a lot about those. We had to, because of the significantly increased price of energy, those energy credits were actually used in the Department of Public Works to pay those energy costs, which was the priority. So there were not excess credits available to sell. The other shortfall is in investment income. Treasurer Marty Brophy, who's here tonight and can answer any questions on investment income, has done a stellar job during his tenure. This reduction in interest income was primarily actually due to the delay in having our audits completed, which prevented us from borrowing earlier and having that money to produce investment income. But be that as it may, we do anticipate that shortfall. So you can see in that first graph, the good news is we have a significant surplus to be able to cover that. We'll get to a little later what that means, though, for our free cash and for addressing some of the other cities' liabilities. We did include a graph there for you that shows the surpluses that we've been able to generate every year for the last year. Those numbers are strictly city departments and not the schools. So the red columns denote the surpluses we've been able to generate in the budget for the last several years. The black lines are the collective surpluses that exist in the enterprise funds. We'll get into much more detail on the enterprises in a little bit, but just wanted to show you in the aggregate how that all works. Just this next slide just shows you that spending in a different way, on a line graph rather than a bar graph. But I thought it was important because it shows fairly modest growth in spending over the last several years for the city. We've talked a lot in the last few years about our grants program, and it was a new program that we began a few years ago. It has proved to be extremely successful. What I'm showing you on this slide are just the last couple of years. You approve recurring grants in these meetings all the time. The state 911 grant that funds our telecommunicators. The grant that the Council on Aging receives every year, their formula grant to help fund their operations. So in these two slides, we didn't include any of those recurring grants. What we listed for you here was in each of the last couple of years, our grants team, on top of all of those, being able to secure another $2 million per year. And we began a practice of collecting the administrative reimbursements for those grants. And as a result, our two grant writers, their salaries are more than paid for by the administrative reimbursements we get from our grant program. So that's been tremendously successful for the city. No discussion about our finances would be complete without talking about our enterprise funds. So we will cover those in some detail. I'll go one by one and just talk about each enterprise fund and its status and where it's at. Some of you that may remember that have been on the council for a little bit, we actually created an enterprise fund a few years back for the parking authority, and I think that was a very sound decision. So we're able to have significant revenues that exceed the expenses, and as a result are able to invest in the parking authority and its operations. Mayor Rodriguez has initiated a pretty bold program to expand, significantly expand the parking enforcement in the city, well beyond the garages. We're able to fund that from the current operations, including the additional personnel required, and even a couple of vehicles that they will use for parking enforcement. I think that's important because we anticipate that's not just an added expense, that will generate significant additional revenue from the expanded enforcement. And so the way that that enterprise fund is operating right now allows us to do that. Parks and Recreation, as you know, is also a very successful program in the city. Listed on most of these slides, also an update on the current fee structure. Parks and Recreation, most of that revenue comes from the golf course, both in greens fees and golf carts. There is a small amount of pool receipts. As you know, though, the general fund does subsidize this enterprise fund, but it is in, as far as I know all, but certainly most communities in Massachusetts use general funds to provide public recreation. It's definitely an appropriate source. What happens here in Brockton, though, is that the significant revenue from the golf course also helps subsidize some of the general recreation costs and making those activities accessible to people here in the city. We've had a significant amount of discussions about the Refuse Enterprise Fund. Just tonight on your agenda, you have a couple of different items. The fees have not kept pace with the increasing costs of providing that service. until the council made what I know was a very difficult, but I believe was a wise decision to increase the fees. So we do anticipate in this fiscal year a surplus because those fees were increased, and that provides some cushion for increased costs as we move forward, but also to invest. I'll be happy to talk when that agenda item comes up. But because of those increased fees, we're able to fund that purchase of the new barrels in 3 years, as I mentioned in my email on the overall agenda. But just sticking with that, I think one of the themes I'd like to strike tonight is I understand, we understand that fee increases are very difficult, and only in the most significant of circumstances do we recommend them. The sewer enterprise is fiscally the most healthy of the enterprise funds. There was a rate increase back in 2024, and that has allowed us to continue to have fairly robust retained earnings. There's also, in both the water and the sewer, some decline in the debt service that will give us some opportunities to make further investments in the sewer infrastructure without raising fees. And so Pat Hill and our finance team are watching that very closely. There's been a lot of discussion on the water enterprise. This water enterprise currently includes the fixed fee for Aquaria. The budget was crafted to prepare for operations as usual. The budget does not anticipate the purchase of Aquaria, but like some of the other fees, and we've talked to both the Ordinance Committee and the Finance Committee about the needs to really take a good look at our water rates. I know Commissioner Hill, a couple of years ago, did a fairly significant rate study that we shared with you, and we believe that another up-to-date rate study is necessary. Commissioner Hill, at the direction of the mayor, is also undertaking a pretty significant analysis of the bulk rates that we charge other communities. So some of the surrounding communities that benefit from our utilities have not had their rates raised in some time. And so I know Commissioner Hill has taken a very close look at that to try to have everyone pay their fair share. As we have discussions with the town of Bridgewater and with the former Naval Air Station in Weymouth and other communities, there is significant interest in water from the city of Brockton, particularly because the water that's produced from the Aquaria plant is PFAS-free and is proven to be high-quality water. I think that interest will only increase. We did not base this budget on the sale of any water because as of July 1st, when the budget began, none of those agreements were signed, but should some of those agreements come to fruition during this fiscal year, it will serve to anticipate additional revenues for that enterprise. Stormwater enterprise is the newest, and it's had a bit of an up and down existence since we formed it. The primary reason for that is, if you recall, when we began the stormwater program in response to the mandate from the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, there was a fee structure that was put in place. There was significant public discussion after that fee structure was put in place. That issue came back here to the council where we made some adjustments. And so you see the dip in revenues in fiscal year 24. That was sort of that transition year. And since then, with the revised fee structure, you see a very healthy enterprise fund that is producing revenues significantly above expenses this year. FY27 has increased a little because we're now investing in some stormwater projects, and the associated financing costs are being borne by the enterprise. But the good news there is that we're able to invest in some of those culvert repairs and stormwater projects and not have an additional impact on the taxpayers or ratepayers because we're financing these projects through the enterprises. So just to wrap up our discussion on the enterprise funds, and of course, when we're finished, I'm happy to answer questions on any or all of these slides. But the enterprise funds are a mixed bag right now. We have some that are financially very healthy and robust, and others that are experiencing some financial challenges and really need some close analysis and some difficult decisions about either reducing services or increasing fees. We'll now spend just a little bit of time. I really want to give you a snapshot on where our reserves are at, because as we project forward to this current fiscal year 28 and beyond, our reserve situation is critically important. Our newest reserve fund, and right now the one that is the most financially healthy, is our pension stabilization fund. Just to recap very briefly, one of the components of our pension obligation bond program that was, while not unique, it was rare, and it was the item that garnered national attention for the city of Brockton, was the fact that we funded this pension stabilization fund not through additional borrowing. So other communities across the United States that implement pension bond programs will borrow extra money and put that in a reserve fund. So you're actually paying principal and interest costs on your reserves. I'd like to give significant credit to the Brockton Retirement Board who worked with us. And in that year when in FY22, when we put this pension stabilization fund together, I went to the retirement board and asked them if we could delay in paying them that year's retirement payment until we issued the debt and roll it in so that we were actually then able to come to you and fund this pension stabilization fund with cash. So there was money in the budget to pay the retirement board, and we actually put that into reserves. And so that resulted in creating a stabilization fund with $22 million in it, something rare in the city of Brockton. And it really helped us when we went and had subsequent borrowings, not just for additional pension debt, but for other capital projects in the city, to be able to show the bond rating agencies that we had significant sums in reserves has been very helpful to our bond rating and to the view of the rating agencies on the fiscal health and the management of the fiscal health of the city of Brockton. So you can see this year that fund has grown over the last several years, both with additional transfers in, but also, to Marty Brophy's credit, significant earnings that stay in the fund. We have had to use some of those funds to balance this year's budget, and we'll probably be coming to you in the near future. We funded most of this year's retirement costs through the operating budget, but as you know, we issued the final $59 million in pension debt just before the end of last fiscal year. So the actuaries for the Brockton Retirement Board have come together with the final figures. That figure for this year that was in the budget, as I mentioned during the budget hearings, was an estimate that was developed not just by me, but by our underwriters and our analysts. And because of interest rates and other factors, we're a little short on that, so we'll be coming to you for a transfer to meet the rest of the city's obligation for this fiscal year. But that fund will remain robust with over $20 million in it. Our general stabilization fund has maintained a fairly low balance. We've tried to replenish it and put money in there. But because of the fiscal constraints of the city, particularly in the wake of the 2023 school deficit, that has been a challenge. We do maintain a balance of about $1 million in that stabilization fund right now. I will tell you that in the past, we've been able to maintain, the last few years, we have budgeted a sum of about $1 million in the HR budget and the human resources budget to help fund the settlement of collective bargaining agreements. We were not able to do that this year because in our need to balance the budget. So I do anticipate when and if those contracts are settled, that this will be a primary source of funding to settle those collective bargaining agreements. So I do anticipate that during this fiscal year that amount will likely be reduced even further. Despite those challenges, we've been able to continue to generate pretty robust free cash. That's really important because that money is used in subsequent years to help balance the budget. That's not a practice that is recommended to use non-recurring revenues to balance a budget, but it has for many, many years been necessary here in Brockton. You can see on this chart that the free cash has hovered around 20 million, generally every year, pretty consistently. And again, going back to how we began this discussion, the foundation of that is two things. It's budgeted but unspent funds and revenues received in excess of projections. And so that consistent vigilance and being conservative about revenue estimation and watching how we spend money very carefully has been the foundation of that free cash. For those that were here in fiscal year 23 and 24, that reduction of free cash to 4 million in FY24 obviously was a direct result of using those funds to address the school deficit. These figures are important and they relate back to that first slide because so we had a pretty robust surplus last year, but we did have a reduction in revenue, so we're going to have to use some of that surplus to cover those. As I get further along in this presentation, you'll see there are other liabilities outstanding that need to be addressed. And so I do anticipate that the free cash that will be available to balance next year's budget, the FY28 budget, will be significantly reduced, if at all. That is an alarm bell that I ask that you heed because while we were able to balance the FY27 budget, balancing next year's budget is going to be all the more difficult. And I will underscore the importance of the dynamics as it relates to the schools later in this presentation. The Chapter 324 supplemental reserve was created when Chapter 324 was passed and when my position was created about 30 years ago. And that is a special law that applies only to Brockton, and it requires us to have an additional reserve fund that was in response to the challenges that Brockton faced back during that previous existential crisis. And the law states that there has to be a certain amount in that fund and it has to escalate every year based on a specific calculation that's approved by the Department of Revenue. We have maintained that balance, but that fund too was drained to address the school deficit. But the requirement of that fund is that it has to be, if you use any money in a certain year, you have to replenish it that following year. And so we have begun this exercise that we will come to you every year and use accumulated free cash to replenish the Chapter 324 reserve and then use those funds to balance the budget. I think one of the critical items that I urge you to address in this coming year is that Chapter 324 should be amended to eliminate that requirement because it's just moving money around, right? We depleted the fund to address the deficit. We do replace it every year, but then we use it. With the dynamic that I just spoke of, it's possible that for FY28, there won't be sufficient funds. The fund is up to over $9 million now. There won't be sufficient funds to replenish that. And so I urge you to work with the legislative delegation to relieve the city of that requirement. So there are current issues that are out there that do require funding by the city. There are three main issues. You are acquainted with all of them. None of these should be a surprise to anyone. There is a still lingering snow and ice deficit of approximately $1 million. The good news is through state aid and the state law that allows us to amortize that, although we do have to address that deficit, that's not something that requires immediate cash to address that deficit. There are two others, though, that are hanging out there. The one is the still lingering $4 million of CARES Act spending that requires that to be addressed. The Commonwealth has been very helpful and very generous in allowing that balance to be carried over. They have required that in order to set the tax rate for this current year, and that'll occur sometime in December or November, that has to be addressed. I have been steadfast in my opinion, and I've shared it publicly many times. We have the data from the spending in Munis, and all of those expenses related to that care deficit were expenses incurred by the Brockton Public Schools. And I believe that with the reserves they've been able to accumulate over the last several years, that they should be able to address that CARES deficit. There also is a lingering FY26 deficit in school transportation. This has been a discussion we've had in this chamber many times. School transportation is non-net school spending, is a city obligation. The schools have done a very good job of reviewing the transportation program and trying to reduce those expenses, but this is a deficit for last year's activities. I know the school committee in the school department is having discussions right now about their ability, their willingness to use what's called circuit breaker funds to address at least a portion of that $5 million. We're all in this together, and you'll see in a few minutes that our ability to work closely and collaboratively with the elected and appointed officials at the Brockton Public Schools is the one main issue that will determine whether or not this city is solvent in the next 2 years. So this is one issue where you can, and I hope will, work closely with them to reduce that. If not, then that will have to be covered with what remains out of the surplus for FY26. This slide just gets into a little more detail on the snow and ice deficit, so that, and I won't go through it in detail, but again, I will provide this on the website in addition to providing hard copies to the council and to the mayor, so that you can see the mechanics of how that snow and ice deficit is addressed. So looking at this current year, this fiscal year that we're in, the budget that you approved, our revenue estimates are just over $565 million, with total approved expenditures of just shy of $565 million. So this is a balanced budget as of right now. We did estimate, as we do every year, the state aid based on House 1, based on the budget that the governor introduces. In my entire career, we've always based state aid on the budget that's introduced by the governor. Almost every year, not every, but almost every year, the legislature exceeds that state aid amount. This year, unfortunately, that state aid was less in that final number than what we had estimated. So we will need to come back to you sometime before you set the tax rate. So it's not urgent, it won't be next week, but sometime this fall, we'll be making some small adjustments, requesting that you make some small adjustments to this year's budget so that we can adjust it downward just a little bit, less than $1 million, so that we can have a balanced budget through which to set the tax rate. We did include in this presentation just a listing of the reductions that the city council made during your review of the budget. So those amounts were out there and clear. I also asked the staff to include, there were 13 positions, existing positions that were funded in the previous year that were unfunded for this fiscal year that amounted to about $1 million. And I included that just to demonstrate. And that doesn't include, you know, we talked about a $10 million figure, the mayor and I, during the budget process. The total ask of the departments that we reduced to balance the budget. But this specifically, I think, demonstrates department heads were willing to make sacrifices and went with smaller staffs to the tune of $1 million in order to balance that budget. So as we move from the city to a snapshot of school financing, I thought it was important to begin that discussion by a review of Chapter 70 state aid, because the legislature, through the Student Opportunity Act, but through their regular appropriations, have, I think, done an outstanding job of funding public education in the Commonwealth and in Brockton. Of course, they can always do more, but as you can see, just over the last several years, the funding has been increased from $212 million in FY22 to $288 million this year. With both declining enrollment and the potential end of the Student Opportunity Act, it's unknown what that number will be for next year, but there is, I think, a fiscal cliff related to school funding happening that we'll need to be aware of and work closely with the schools to address. So along with the increasing state aid, the city has significantly increased its commitment to net school spending over the last several years. This slide demonstrates the total allocation of city funds to net school spending, but also the fact that that has maintained a percent of the overall budget, and we've been able to maintain that number at somewhere between 46 and 48% as those numbers rose. And so I think the city's contribution continues to be significant as it relates to public education. But as we move forward, I think we need to really take a hard look at how we deliver services. There's been some discussion, lots of discussion in this chamber about sharing responsibilities, sharing services, and consolidating, both as a means to be more efficient, but also as a means to potentially spend less on some of those administrative costs. So these next few slides give you a snapshot and allow us to look at how the city and the schools address core non-educational, let me say non-classroom services like human resources and finance and facilities. And so these next few slides just give you a snapshot of how the schools look at, in this slide, human resources versus the city. And when we did this research, we found across the board that the schools are able to dedicate more positions and more people to these core services, and generally across the board also pay people significantly more than their counterparts in the city. And let me be clear, these slides aren't to point fingers. They're to have a real honest discussion about how much money we spend on HR and finance and facilities, and whether or not we'd be better off by combining those and spending less. And so this gives us a real opportunity to take a look at those services, how they're funded, and how we might improve on that. So as you can see, just starting off with HR, more positions and significantly more in salaries. The same in finance, 8 positions versus 7, and total spending a couple $100,000 more. And across the board, the general salaries for senior positions and analysts is significantly more. And payroll. And I know so much of what we talk about these days is so highly politically charged. So let me be clear. We didn't include names in these for a reason. This isn't about the hardworking, dedicated people who hold these positions in the schools or the city, but we can't make difficult decisions unless we have difficult discussions. We have to be able to be honest and try to come without emotion to these discussions and say, how can we be better? And so when we look at payroll, we have recently, as you know, transferred the supervision of payroll here in the city from accounting, from the auditing office to the treasurer collector. And the treasurer collector for the city of Brockton is responsible not only for payroll now, but for the entirety of maintaining the checkbook, so to speak, and of that $500 million that we spend every year, and of investing our cash and all of that. And yet that position pays fairly significantly less than the payroll counterpart over at the schools. The same is true in facilities, probably the most stark. We understand now when you look at facilities, we didn't include custodians because the numbers would have skewed even further. So these are just craftspeople, leadership within the facilities department, and then looked at the facilities department here, and those craftspeople as well. And the number of positions and the salaries are significantly different. So I think this is a real area where we can have some conversations, look at how we might combine And when I say combine, obviously that means a reduction in positions. But I think we're going to have to spend less if we're going to balance our budget in fiscal year 28 and beyond. I think another important snapshot is to provide you a look at how the city has treated its collective bargaining agreements over the last several years. And this is, there's a lot of information. This is busy on this chart, but I wanted you to have the whole picture. And I want people to go to the website and download this and look at this and ask questions. And I know there are representatives of several of our unions here tonight, and I know they're frustrated, and I know they're disappointed. But here's the reason why. Our unions have stepped up and come to the table and negotiated contracts that are very modest. If you look at last year, FY26, most of the unions took a one-year contract at 1.5%. The counterparts in the school department had significantly higher. So I can tell you, when we're at the table, we have to answer not only for the decisions the mayor makes, but for the decisions of the superintendent and the school committee in addressing those collective bargaining agreements. And what you see here is a snapshot of unions that have stepped up on behalf of the city and taken pretty modest increases over the last 5 years to try to do their part. Nobody wants to hear what I'm about to say, but we all need to do that and continue to do more with less. And I did include the ordinance and employees on the bottom there. This, by the way, for all of the unions and the ordinance employees, does not include step increases that are built into the contracts. And some of those contracts that you see there took lesser percentages to rework the step system so that they could have some annual increases. But generally, I think this slide shows very clear dedication and participation by organized labor here in the city to be part of the solution. The final topic I'll discuss tonight before wrapping up and making some recommendations are the pension obligation bonds. This is perhaps the most discussed and I believe the most misunderstood financial dynamic in the city in the last couple of years. So this first slide is one that you've seen many iterations of that. There's a slide like this that's floating around right now to discuss the high school project. And what I've said before, I'll say again. When Councillor Thompson asked me in 2021 if the issuance of the pension obligation bonds would prohibit us from building the high school, my answer to him was no, it will enable us to build the high school. And I still believe in that very, very firmly. In this slide that you see before you, that drop off after FY36 is our window of opportunity to be able to take on the entirety of the school debt within what we're paying now for principal and interest. There are so few opportunities in any community in the Commonwealth to fund a capital project of that magnitude or half that magnitude without asking the taxpayers to dip into their pockets and pay more. So this is something that of which the city, of which you, because you were the people that allowed us to do this in the first place. And it's something of which you should be very proud because it's a generational difference, a generational opportunity to invest in the infrastructure of this city. Now, the high school debt isn't on this slide because this slide isn't about high school debt. But remember, not only will you have the opportunity to cover the entirety of the high school debt once that pension debt retires, but there'll be room to invest in other capital projects without an additional impact on the budget or on taxes. And so I thought it was important to start off this discussion with another snapshot of how that pension debt was planned so that we can see how it impacts the city's finances. But the real question, I think, the critical, if anything I discuss with you tonight resonates, please let it be this, because the critical next step in this journey is coming to some agreement with the schools about paying their fair share of these costs. And you've heard that this discussion of them paying their fair share is new, and it was discovered when one of our state representatives looked at the law. There's been so much rhetoric that's flown around this city in the last couple of years. It's really important tonight that I speak to you frankly and truthfully and accurately. That is not the case. I was in meetings with Mayor Sullivan and Desi and the school representatives a year ago, 2 years ago, in discussing whether or not we could charge to net school spending the principal and interest cost. And so it's been a consistent message from the city. What happened was, in last year's budget, there was a decision made because we had the funds on hand to set that discussion aside and to then take it up in the future. Well, the future is now. And so what we must do is have a very frank discussion about what the fair share of those pension obligation costs should be for the Brockton Public Schools. And it is the most important decision that will be made in this city in the foreseeable future, because the decision is made for the schools to pay their fair share, and I'll talk about what I think that is in a minute. Then we have a chance to balance the FY28 budget. If we don't, we will most certainly be out of balance for fiscal 28 and seek assistance from the Commonwealth. And that is not dramatic. That is just a very blunt, factual statement. And so this slide goes into detail about two different calculation scenarios. When Open Architects was working on behalf of the school department and the city, they ran some scenarios, all based in existing data, about how that share should be allocated. The first calculation was just over 60% for the schools and 40% for the city. And that was based on a calculation that was just done on numbers, raw numbers of how pensions were paid in the city, numbers of people. And so the pensioners that the schools are responsible for are non-teacher retirees. Teachers get their pensions through what's called the Massachusetts Teachers Retirement System, but in the city's pension system are all people who are not eligible for those pensions. And that didn't really seem like a good way to do it. It certainly benefited the city. What that means is for every dollar in pension costs, 60 cents would be paid by the schools and 40 cents by the city. But we agreed that that was probably not the most accurate way. And so OA went back to the table and created a calculation that was based on actual dollars paid to pensioners. And that shifted that down from 60% to almost dead even at 48%. So 48 for the schools and 52 for the city. Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, has said that they have a preferred method of calculating it that's at 32% for the schools and a little under 70% for the city. The challenge with that is, I think, and we can, if you'd like, to see all of those calculations, go into detail on how those numbers are run. But the challenge, I think, with that calculation is that it looks at the dollars that were deducted in FY25 for pensions, and then it looks at it as a percentage of overall spending. And so it doesn't really connect the dots. I believe that the 48% calculation is accurate. It's based in hard data, and it's based in actual dollars paid to pensioners. And so it's something we can get behind and agree to. Why is this important? If you look on this slide, going back to FY24, if that proper allocation was made in FY24 of a 48% share of those pension costs, then we would have exceeded net school spending in that year by $6.6 million. If that allocation was made in FY25, we would have exceeded net school spending by $7.8 million. Even if we were at the 32%, we would have exceeded that number in FY24 by $276,000. One of the other important issues we need to address is that there is a belief right now that there is another $6 million hanging out there that is owed to the schools from the city. This discussion, I think, would suggest otherwise. But we're only going to get to consensus if we work together with the elected and appointed officials at the schools and come to some consensus. I'm almost done, Mr. President. This is a very busy slide, and I understand, but I needed to have you get all of that data out there so that you can see, looking from FY24 forward to FY39, what the different methods bear out from 48 to 63 to 37 to 32% allocation of those pension costs, and what that means for actual dollars in net school spending. And let me be very clear, the result of adopting that 48% will result in a very significant reduction in available net school spending next year. And I believe at least a recognition that we're exceeding it in this year's budget. And that's critical when we come to the end of year report and DESI says, well, you still owe millions of dollars, and these calculations say otherwise. That's critical to the solvency of the city. Final slide before I just wrap it up with some key takeaways. I think it was important to end on this because this demonstrates what would have happened if we never took out that pension debt. That black line represents what our annual payments would have been to the Brockton Retirement Board had we not issued the pension debt. So you can see in FY36, that amount would be close to $60 million. That's $60 million coming out of the operating budget of the city to address pension costs. And so if I would urge you, beg you even, if anyone, on social media, in the grocery store, or sitting on a bar stool tells you that pension obligation bond project was not good for the city, carry this slide around in your back pocket and demonstrate that it was the one thing that has allowed us to continue to survive financially in this city, and the one thing that will allow us to build a high school with a minimal impact on the taxpayers. So finally, in conclusion, just some key takeaways here, and I'm happy to answer your questions tonight or in the weeks to come. I will be at your next Finance Committee meeting in early September. The general fund and enterprise fund spending have trended upward in the last few years, but surplus is generated consistently that have been the cornerstone of our financial health. Fiscal year 28, as we start to plan for that, is right now significantly out of balance. We have significantly drawn down our reserves to maintain our fiscal stability, and we cannot continue to do that because those reserves simply don't exist as they did before. The unfunded pension liability is on a scheduled decline, and we'll continue to see the benefits of that in the years to come. Net school spending has significantly grown from 198 million to 251, staying at that 46 to 48% of the core budget. So I think you can all hold your heads high that we've maintained a commitment to funding public education. However, answering that question about the fair share of the pension cost is, and perhaps the existential issue for the city of Brockton this year and in the years to come. And so, I don't mean to finish on a dour note, but I thought it was important that I finish on an honest note. The solvency of the city is dependent upon the decisions that are made as it relates to the fair share of those pension costs. And I trust that you'll make the right decision. It's not going to be easy, but I hope I've given you at least some tools to have some discussions with your constituents, with the school committee members about the best path forward. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilor Tavares.
All right. Good evening now. Mr. Troy, thank you for your service. Actually, today it was a lot of information, but I'm going to try to ask a simple question directly to the point. Actually, my first question goes, when you mention about taking a good look at the water rate, does the current water rate enterprise budget is included a full fixed payment to any query, something like that?
No, and so I didn't read the whole presentation, but it's in the presentation. So as we let you know when we brought the budget to you, that fixed payment to Aquaria is not included in the current year's budget, simply because the revenue from the water rates would not sustain that. And so every year we have to justify the enterprise budgets and the Department of Revenue will not allow us to set the tax rate unless we're basing those enterprise budgets on actual revenues that we can prove out. And so we have to base the projected revenues on revenues that we can guarantee that we'll get in. So we've had the last couple of years to reduce that requested budget to you because to meet the actual revenues that we know we'll get.
Okay. And then the second question goes like, you know, all right, actually, before we approving a new rate for the query purchase, will the city council will receive a complete information to review and analyze before making any decision?
Yes, of course. I know that extensive research has been done and there's been extensive discussions on this council about the purchase in the past. I have been steadfast in my belief that that is a financially sound purchase and initiative for the city. I know there are those of you on the council that disagree with that, but that's okay. That's the system we have, right? This is the forum to have informed debate and informed dissent. So I think when and if there's a negotiated settlement, one does not exist right now to purchase the Aquaria plant, then that will have to come before you in the form of a loan order at which you'll have the opportunity to have significant debate.
All right, the reason I asked this question is, as far as you know, the prior decision was being taken about regarding like, you know, trash. As you know, come to the end, we vote like without choice because it was no choice to do so. At this point, it is important before making any decision or approach anything. I think it's important for councilors to review, also to give a public opportunity to discuss on this matter before we make a final decision. Because at the end of the day, like, you know, we don't want a taxpayer to get burned day after day. As far as we know, right now the economy is crashed, it's so down. And then things keep increase, the water, the storm water. I know we give so much information is so great, but we have people to low income, they couldn't survive. As far as you know, you can see right now is a lot of properties been on sale because they couldn't afford to pay water bills. It's so expensive. They can afford to pay storm water. And then it's just for us to kind of take a look and work together and make a decision together and then get the taxpayer opportunity to be involved before we make any decision. This is all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Yeah. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Clarkson, if you can, where are we with the school department and pension obligation bonds? Can you give us a summary of where you think we are in terms of reaching some agreement?
We have shared back and forth significant information for quite some time now. So we are certainly aware of the DESI preferred method of that 32%. We believe that the 48% that I mentioned this evening is a much more equitable and frankly supportable with the data. So I think the next step that needs to occur is actual negotiations, discussions in a room. The mayor has actually begun regular meetings with the superintendent and some of her leadership and him and me. In those forums, we have the opportunity to have, I think, frank and respectful discussions, and it's in forums like that where we need to come to some agreement.
Okay, I guess maybe I should have been more specific. What is your take on the attitude of the people with whom you're talking on the school side with respect to coming to some type of an agreement? I'd like to know their posture. Is it cooperative? Is it, well, we're not convinced yet, we need more data? Is it tough luck, you're going to have to figure it out on your own, we don't think we owe it? I mean, I'd like to drill down to, when you tell me something is an existential threat to the city, I have to drill down on exactly where we are and how we get to where we need to be, because I don't want to have another situation where the state has to step in and monitor our finances. So what is their attitude towards this issue? Their personal attitude as members of the community, part of the family of people who are in elected office and have to make decisions.
So I will draw a distinction between, I think, what I have seen is the level of cooperation and collaboration from the superintendent and the school committee, because in the recent meetings that we've had with the superintendent have been very professional. I think there's been a real willingness to work with us, to compromise, and I see that as something very positive. I've been at the same school committee meetings that you have all witnessed and watched, and I don't get that sense of commitment and collaboration in those meetings.
All right, well, I do think it's beneficial to have you come back. The reason I pushed you on that is I think the public has to step in and put pressure on the school committee members to get together with the mayor and with finance, master the information that they are given, and come up with a resolution that will be in the best interest of the city. Period. End of discussion. It has to be done. Or we're going to get back to a position where we're laying off critical positions. Every position is critical, but public safety, other positions, the city can't afford that. So thank you for your presentation, and I do hope you'll come back before assuming another position. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nicastro.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Clausen. It was quite a presentation. And I have a question about the school's pension obligation. What do other communities do?
That is a great question. And so there's a limited amount of data available, and we are currently doing that research. And when I have it all compiled, I will provide it to all of you and to the schools. There's only a handful of communities that have had the foresight and the ability to do that, because it requires permission from the legislature, which we had from back in 2005. So we were able to skip that step. So Andover, Quincy, and just a couple of other communities have existing ones. There are other communities that are lining up now because they have seen, City of Newton is a good example. They've seen how successful this has been for us and are looking to go through the process now. The state law, and I'm digressing a little bit, but you raise an important point. State law is that the pensions have to be fully funded by 2040. And so as we get closer to that date, communities are looking at either trying to convince the legislature to push that out further or to do something with the amortization of those costs to really reduce it. And the whole basis of the success of the pension obligation bond project was that we borrowed the money at 3%. We handed over $300 million to the Brockton Retirement Board, and they're investing it. And we projected for the first one 6.75% as a rate of return. Anyone that has, 401k knows that you generally can do better than that. And so those investments reduce that overall liability. And so communities are jumping on board to do that. So when we have that data, I will share it with you of how those other communities are allocating those.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Green.
Dr. Clarkson, thank you for this presentation and these details. I have a couple of questions for you. I'm referencing slide number 15. Well, the enterprise funds in general. From what I gather from your presentation, you mentioned that the enterprise and funds are a kind of a mixed bag, if you will. I'm gathering that there are some challenges in the performance of the refuse fund and a water as well, and correct me if I'm wrong. What are the other enterprise funds that are kind of presenting as a challenge that need to be addressed in the near future?
So the primary one is the water enterprise, and we have presented to you some scenarios for some rate increases. And as I mentioned, during my presentation. Commissioner Hill is also working on an analysis of the bulk rate charges so that other communities, Whitman, for example, pay their fair share and are not paying less than our citizens are paying. So the water is the primary one. The refuse was a challenge, but you addressed that recently, and so we do anticipate that you'll be able to have a surplus in that refuse enterprise fund, at least for the next couple of years. We'll have to see what the next generation contract looks like. But the real challenge, I think, is the water.
Water, okay. Thank you. On slide number 22, the current deficits, where are you leaving things in regards to the deficit for the CARES Act and the school transportation costs? That's a total of $9 million. So you've identified this as something that is critical to be addressed. So where are we leaving things now?
So our auditor, Juan Gonzalez, who is also here tonight and available to answer any questions you might have, works very, very closely with the Department of Revenue. And so I can tell you that nothing that I presented in this slideshow tonight is a surprise to the DOR. The CARES deficit and the school transportation deficit have to be extinguished in order for us to set the tax rate in November or December. And so because the non-net school spending is a general fund responsibility, we will have to address that. So it'll either come out of the totality of that, it's a little less than 5 million will come out of the city's budget surplus. Hopefully the schools will see fit to use some of the circuit breaker funds, which can be used to address certain kinds of transportation costs. And that will leave a little bit of a cushion for some free cash for next year. The CARES deficit is lingering out there. And so as we get closer to setting the tax rate, that's unknown at this point. We will have to work with the Department of Revenue to see how best to address that. As I said and have said for years, we have the receipts, so to speak. We know that those costs were school costs. And we believe that because those monies were expended for school expenditures, that the monies that we've provided to the schools and the reserves that they have on hand should be able to address that. Remember that in the last few years, the schools have had year-end balances in the millions of dollars every year. And what we've done at the end of each year is after July 1st, provided those funds back to them. And so they have addressed spending some of those funds to address capital issues, I believe some technology issues in the city, but there still are funds on hand that could be used to extinguish that CARES deficit. And I believe that that would be appropriate.
Thank you. On 37, slide 37, the aggregate pension obligation bond schedule. You've identified FY 37 as kind of the key period for the pension retirement, and this would allow the city to take on the full debt of the schools, the new high school, rather. In addition to the retirement of the pension obligation, are you assuming in this analysis that, well, what we just mentioned, the CARES Act deficit, the transportation deficit, start with those two. This is assuming that those deficits are cured up to this point.
So this slide looks only at existing debt service. So this is principal and interest for which the city is currently responsible. So the existing deficits that we talked about earlier in the presentation aren't reflected on here, because this is only general obligation debt, and it doesn't include other spending or other budgetary items.
Okay, all righty. So it is possible that there could be some other factors that may affect us being able to take on the full debt of the high school at FY 37.
Well, it's an interesting point, Council, when you put it that way, yes. I mean, if we can't balance our budget in FY '28 and have to seek assistance to exist, then a window of opportunity in FY '37 is less attractive, right? Because what I'm talking about, obviously, is the Commonwealth participating in a scenario like that. They would issue notes to be able to cure that funding gap, but then they would assume some role in managing the city. And we would have, I don't want to try to predict the future, but in a scenario like that, the city's ability to seek a debt exclusion may be limited. I don't know. I don't want to speculate on that. I want to concentrate on the fact that this debt schedule is a very rare opportunity to invest in the city's future with minimal cost to the taxpayers. And I didn't talk about that debt exclusion, that $188 per year that's been talked about in the community, because I didn't want to confuse the two issues. Okay. That temporary debt exclusion isn't reflected in this chart. This is simply the existing principal and interest for debt.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? Seeing none.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
This doesn't require a motion, Counselor, just as it's just an update by the CFO. Mr.
Thank
CFO.
you, Mr. CFO.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Counselor.
Move back to item 6.
Yeah, we'll go back to item 6 in just a second.
Actually,
I just want to add.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a motion to move item number 24 out of order and hear it next.
Second.
Right. Motion's made and seconded. Before we get into that, I would just thank the CFO for his presentation. I think it's clear what needs to be done and what actions need to be taken. There are actions that we've discussed and we've recommended. We'll move forward with that. Thank you. Motion's been properly made and seconded to take item number 24 out of order. All in favor? All opposed? Mr. Clerk.
Item 24, be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Commissioner of Health and Human Services, Dr. Wadazar McCullough, Chief of Inspectional Services, James Doucette, Attorney Philip Nazarella, Attorney Scott Rubin, Director of Economic Development, Dr. Eliza Wilson, and Mayor Moises Rodriguez to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss tobacco licenses, opportunities for economic growth in empty buildings, the availability of licenses, and license applications in the city of Brockton for tobacco sales.
Councilor Azak, this is your resolve.
It is.
Go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason for this resolve is really to bring awareness to the council as well as residents of what is happening with the city's tobacco licenses and my concerns of what the impact of eliminating them will have a detrimental impact to our city's economic development. So the only person that's missing off this list is Solicitor O'Brien. I did speak to him. He had a previous family matter that previously scheduled, so he couldn't be here, but I'm keeping him updated with with however we can work with this or what needs to be done legally. Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for inviting us. I've had numerous conversations with multiple council members on our current regulations, tobacco sales regulations. As soon as I started, I reviewed the state laws, reviewed our current regulations, had multiple meetings with Jim Doucette around, current inspections, things like that that have been going on, hearings that have been stalled just because of, the time between our transition from a Board of Health to a Health Commissioner. So taking all of that into understanding, I get, the need to address this immediately with sort of a question in the air about our ability to provide new permits for, business owners who want to sell tobacco in their stores. So with the help of the MMA, of the MHOA, I've been able to update our regulations on my end. I've had that reviewed by the MMA. It's currently in the hands of our law department for their final review. But within that, I've updated the regulations to reflect some change in the language, so it's not as maybe confusing as maybe our current regulations may read, where we do still have a cap for our number of permits that we provide from the city, but we're able to meet that cap continuously. And if there is, for any reason, the request exceeds that particular cap number, then that's when basically a waiting list would be created for new businesses who look to purchase a permit to sell tobacco. But I believe in our new regulations that language is a little bit more clear, not only for the city council, but for residents and business owners who want to purchase a tobacco sales permit going forward. So I'm hoping, that review is complete within the next week or so that we could issue that, because there are new state laws that the residents of Brockton should be informed about in our new written regulations as well.
Sure. So what, you said you already submitted something with the law department?
Yes, my regulations, yes, the regulations.
Regulations, okay. Thank you, Commissioner. So I know that Mr. Doucette had some numbers for us that, you had gotten. I had asked if you could compile a little bit of statistics. If you can give those to us, that would be great.
Yeah, certainly I can speak to that, Madam Councilor, that the ISD is responsible for tobacco enforcement in our city. And since ISD was formed in 2023, we undertake regular inspections of these facilities. Pardon me, we've uncovered 96 violations of the tobacco regulations, whether they be the city regulations or the state law, the CMR pertaining to tobacco. To those 96 violations, we have assigned $192,000 in fines. And the tobacco violations that we see, there's two primary ones. There are violations of the state prohibition on flavored tobacco, and then there are violations that involve the minimum sales age for tobacco products. The first type of violation, we take that it may indicate an integrity problem with the retailer as they are actively and knowingly engaging in a violation. In the second type of violation, the sale of tobacco products to a minor, we treat in most cases as a training issue, and we seek to bolster their processes by reinforcing the law with them.
Thank you. So I just want to be clear. I want enforcement for anything illegal. This is not to change any, laws as far as enforcing, we don't want anybody breaking the law. My biggest concern was how it's going to affect our economic development, and in the, if we're diminishing the number of tobacco licenses, we're ending up with a lot of empty buildings. For example, the 7-Eleven that was on Belmont Street across from Shaw's is now the property had to be divided into 2 spaces, and now it holds a Papa John's, and the other space is empty because they weren't able to get a business in there, another convenience stores, because no business is going to go, no convenience store is going to open without a tobacco license. And that's and I don't know if you remember, Commissioner McCullough, but when you first came on, I told you we had a problem with this when your first day here, and I was hoping that we could work on it before it, it got, before it became a major issue for the city. So I know the regulations you submitted to the law department, do you have, can you tell us a little bit about them? I mean, I have Attorney Nazarella here and Attorney Rubin, who have been working on these for years. I've been, I've had Attorney Nazarella before the Economic Development Committee of the City Council. We've discussed this in the past. I just, I'd like them to speak a little bit on it as well, but I would feel like whatever you sent to the law department, I would like to see, possibly to have it shared with us so we could.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I could have it shared with you.
Okay.
But I'll speak on other conversations that I've had with Eliza, with James, even with Jeff Thompson around how we do business in Brockton. Yes, we want business in Brockton, but do we also want to contribute to what we have issues with on the street, which is substance use disorder, which is addiction to alcohol and other drugs as well, right? So promoting or trying to bring in more business who does sell tobacco will contribute to the issues that we see on the street down the line.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt, Commissioner, but
Yeah.
to me, I don't smoke, so this is not, and I don't promote smoking, but I also don't promote drinking, but are we going to close all the bars in the city?
No, that's not.
Or the restaurants that serve alcohol?
Exactly,
I just
that's
feel
not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we have to think about how we do business in Brockton differently. If we are trying to reach a brighter Brockton, a better Brockton in the future, which I think all of you are committed to, that starts with a healthy population. And if we continue to try to bring in business to basically have a high tobacco retail density in the city, contributing to higher lung cancer rates, contributing to higher asthma ER visits, all of that is related to our built environment. Our built environment includes our businesses, our retailers, our convenience stores, our gas stations, and what they sell to the public. So I think it's on all of us, right, if we want to address the health issues in the city, because a healthier Brockton leads to a better Brockton.
I understand.
And as I mentioned, it starts with all of us. So I think we just need to consider how we do business. I've, promoted thinking about how can we bring about a healthy convenience store model into the city, and what does that look like? And I would love for all of us to contribute to that idea as we move forward and try to build a better Brockton. Honestly, that is my consensus on that.
And I respect that, but I feel like in this case, tobacco is kind of being, discriminated against. But once again, I don't smoke, but if we're going to go that route, then are we going to close out, not allow anybody that sells junk food or fast food or, supermarkets that sell certain foods? I mean, I feel like Brockton always kind of gets the, I don't think we should be taking this risk with a city our size. And if I tell you, my biggest worry is seeing empty storefronts, empty buildings. We're here, we want to flourish. I'm not saying about opening illegal businesses, but as of right now, tobacco is legal. We just legalized marijuana. What are we going to do with all the licenses we gave out? Because isn't that part of smoking? I don't know. This argument can go any way, but once again, the Board of Health holds the tobacco licenses, but then licensing does the alcohol. Like alcohol, I think, is right there with tobacco if we want to argue it. But that's not why we're here this evening. This evening is really to bring bring light on what's happening and what we can do to kind of, and I respect all your views, and I would love in a perfect world to have a happy, perfect, glowing Brockton. But sadly, if they're not purchasing tobacco or their cigarettes here, they're going to go down at the end of Belmont Street to Easton or Abington or Avon or one of the Bridgewaters. I don't think we're going to, I think we're only hurting ourselves. So I just want to make sure that we're working together on this so we don't end up in a situation that we all didn't see coming. So I would just like to hear from the attorneys, but thank you.
No problem.
If you can share what you sent to the law department,
Yes,
I really
will
would
do that.
appreciate it.
No problem.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Philip Nasrallah.
You have Attorney Scott Rubin.
If I may, Counselor, I heard the comments. I respect where the comments are coming from, and I understand them quite well. I think there are two components to the issues that are facing Brockton. One is the distribution of tobacco licenses, which is far under what was initially intended by the city. And secondly, the administration of the tobacco license post-violation. When you have regulations that discriminate and object and reject the ability to transfer a license from one person to the other, it's completely anti-business and makes no sense at all. If myself and my partner have been into business for 30 years, and he wants to retire and transfer the license that's in his name to me who've been working with him, or the landlord no longer will continue the lease and I want to move my business across the street, it's going to be rejected by the city with the intent to extinguish, or better word, retire the license. That is completely anti-business, makes it very difficult to encourage businesses to come into the city and to do business, and hence the reason for a lot of empty storefronts, which I have worked with numerous owners of those properties that have been completely discouraged because they cannot have a convenience store or any type of a business establishment that has a relationship to tobacco. So again, the issuance of tobacco, and Attorney Rubin has experience with that as well, is one problem, but the administration of the licenses, once they have it, is designed to get it terminated at some point. And I think it's an unwise business practice once that license has been issued. And I think that's what I asked the city solicitor to look into. I would ask the city solicitor to look into that through the council, and also for the council's wisdom and common sense on this issue.
Thank you.
I certainly echo those comments of Attorney Nasrallah. I've been working downtown in the city here on Legion Parkway since 1994. My practice, a good portion of my practice is representing city businesses and commercial landlords and doing real estate. And, you know, certainly the issue of, certainly represent a lot of cannabis stores, as many of the councilors know. I also do liquor and tobacco with the convenience and package stores. And so the tobacco issue is constantly coming up in my practice, having the inability to be able to acquire, you know, a tobacco permit, which I think should be routinely available to businesses that want it. And, you know, your constituents, your people that live and work in this city, they have a desire for these products. It may not be what everybody is interested in. However, I think the city should make it convenient for people where they live and work. You should have the ability to buy, whether it's smokeless tobacco, vape, or cigarettes. As a policy, I think people should be able to get it where they live and work. I know for a fact that several supermarkets, large supermarkets, have left the city. Stop and Shop has left the city, a couple locations. And so just to think that we had a policy that dates back to 2016 where the licenses were capped, and when the licenses lapsed, they disappeared and they couldn't be issued, and Market Basket, a new Market Basket wants to locate and say we want to sell cigarettes and we can't get a permit to sell cigarettes. I mean, these are, again, important businesses and industries, not just these big box stores, but the mom and pop convenience stores that I represent. I've got a client with me here tonight who has been looking to, who acquired a beer and wine license for the location of his, where his, he put together a, over a $10 million building, has an empty space, a commercial space in the first floor. It's looking to put a beer and wine in, which we were able to acquire, but we want a convenience store as well, and we can't get a tobacco permit as of this moment. And so a lot of the things I think I know our building commissioner is working on, whether it's code, form-based code and the development in and up and down the corridor down Main Street. We're looking at commercial on the first floor and residential on the above. And we can't fill all these spaces with, we haven't been able to find a space for a white glove restaurant that we've been looking at for a long time. The Enterprise building, I think, is still vacant down on the first floor. There's several buildings that are still being rehabbed where we need these types of businesses. So I would love to hear, I haven't heard from the city solicitor yet as to exactly what the commissioner's proposal was, as to how many licenses would be freed up or how many would be available. I'm a little concerned about a waiting list. Again, business owners would like some continuity. They need stability. They need to know if they're going to make an investment in the city that they have the ability to acquire a license and not have to concern themselves about a long waiting list or red tape, or have to go, to the city or a particular counselor and say, I need an amendment or I need a favor. It's basically what the city did with the Cumberland Farms when it was built on Oak Street. They had to make an amendment to the rules in order to give them a permit for a cigarette license. I think that's a very unworkable solution for the city. And so I'm hoping that we can come up with a solution. I certainly look forward to reviewing the legislation that can work for the business community and the residents at large.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So once again, I think we're all just trying to do our jobs here. So I respect everybody's views. But I think we just want what's best for Brockton, and I think our economic development's really important. So I promised everybody that this wasn't going to take long. I know that we have the mayor here. I don't know if he wants to speak on this or not. He doesn't have to, but he is here. So thank you for being here, Mr. Mayor, and we've had this conversation. We also have Director of Economic Development, Dr. Eliza Wilson here. If you want, Eliza, if you want to speak on the matter, it's up to you.
I just want to acknowledge what Attorney Nasrallah said. This appears to be anti-business. And so when we do have a developer who has invested $10 million in one of his properties and looking to invest multi-millions into more, for us as a city to limit his ability to operate a business, that doesn't seem towards progress. And so giving people the option to buy or not to buy the tobacco, I think is something that we ought to really consider saying yes to, and maybe not necessarily on a waiting list. People invest a lot of money to open businesses, and the more barriers to opening into operation, it actually costs a lot of money. So in the interest of building a downtown where people are, I would argue that we should not be capping the amount of licenses we're distributing.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, and thank you, Councilor, for putting me on the spot. I appreciate the initiative of our, new health and commissioner, and I do. I'm not a smoker, not necessarily a drinker, to be honest with you either, but I do support businesses in this community. I mean, we just heard, our CFO just talking about how dire our numbers look for the next few years as we move forward with this. And I'm basically pushing forward to make sure that businesses come to our community, businesses that often sell things that I might not be a patron of. But our goal is to continue to grow this city. I honestly, I was just talking to our fire chief not too long ago. If there was a law that basically banned smoking or smoke products in the entire state of Massachusetts or New England or the country itself, I'm all for that, because the health and well-being of our, citizens are important to all of us. But to punish the city of Brockton in a way where, like you said, people can go to Easton and the Bridgewaters and the surrounding communities and purchase these products and yet not being able to use them here in the city, I think we're basically, it's that old saying of cutting our noses because we're upset with our faces in the sense. That's not the same, but I just wanted to make sure I paraphrase it. And I want to make sure that we're not doing that, that we're basically, being fair to the businesses in our community, being fair to our population, educate people, because, the thing that I believe would control this whole issue with smoking and the use of products, of smoking products, is to have a strong educational component to it where you educate people not to smoke. But I think to take away the opportunity for people to make a living in the sense, those that want to make a living, I don't think that's what we're here for. We're here to support businesses in our community. And, for some of us that are concerned with our finances moving forward, I think we got to be realistic and look at and say, what can we do to grow our tax base, grow our business base here in the city, and not limit those that are looking to help us move the city forward. So again, I appreciate the work of our commissioner, and I'll continue to support the work of our commissioner, but I also am here to support the businesses and the business community as they move forward. Again, if it was a total ban in the country, a total ban in the state, 100% for it. But I don't think we should sit here and punish the city of Brockton business community because of what we're trying to do.
Thank you. So I'm all set. I don't know if any of the councilors have questions.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you, Councilor Azak. Keeping in mind that it is 8:45, Councilor Tavares, followed by Councilor Griffin.
Well, mine is not literally a question. It's just like literally concern and then agree with you guys. For some reason, we're here to support business because if you don't have a business, we're not gonna have enough sustained, for special help with the taxpayer in Brockton. Because not necessarily giving people option. Remember, we have a human right. You have a right to choose, freedom to express, freedom to do whatever you want. But in this case, my understanding, right here, we're giving people option. Then if we're giving people option, for example, I don't smoke, I don't drink, because I don't want to. Meaning if I want to smoke, it's a prevention because I can't smoke. And then right here, based on human rights, where's my right, right? And then second, I'm a little concerned couple. I've been talking to Mr. Mayor multiple times about people having such a hard time when they come to Brockton to open business. I think literally, we feel we make those people life like hell. Let me tell you, like hell, to open little business. And then what's our goals? Our goals, we think we want to attract more business, to raise taxpayer in the business and lower with the taxpayer. But unfortunately, I get called every day. I have a problem. I have this. And then thank God we have a new commissioner, which I have a less call for the permit because before it was disaster. But thank God I have less call out of 80%. I know I got even 10%. But every time I call, the issue is solved right away. I think we need to try to kind of work together with the community, with the business, welcome business, and try to make easy and facilitate the process, the permit, the way everybody can have access to do so and feel welcome, not to feel like I want to give up, I'm done, I'm quick. And then this is, I think, is not right. That's all I have to say. And then I'm very concerned about this too. And then Mr. Mayor, we talk every week about this. And all we talk. Then we need to find a way to work for the people, not for us, but people. Thank you so much.
Councilor Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with Attorney Nazarella on this. I think the city trying to control illegal substance is futile. I mean, tobacco is legal once you're of age. And if we try to control the amount of businesses that can distribute it in the city, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. We need revenue in this city desperately. You heard Dr. Clarkson speak a little while ago about the financial straits we are coming into, unfortunately. Now, this is not a panacea, but I think this is indicative of how Brockton can move forward by helping businesses. I also see the Health Commissioner's point. I agree with 100%, but I think your function in this should be educational to prevent people from wanting to smoke. But if an adult wants this legal product, he or she should be able to buy it in the city of Brockton at a legal store. I have no problem with that at all, because if we prohibit that, we're going to lose the revenue, and they're still going to go buy cigarettes in Easton, Stoughton, the Bridgewaters. So I think it's imperative on us to lift the moratorium on tobacco licenses, fill some of these vacant storefronts, but also at the same time, I'd like the Health Commission to continue their efforts at educating our young people to prevent them from going down this road for tobacco and nicotine. But we cannot do one exclusively without the other. The city definitely needs a revenue, and we do want healthy people in the city. But again, I think we can work with the city having additional licenses giving without really a detrimental effect on the health of the citizens in Brockton. Because at the end of the day, it's a personal choice whether you choose to smoke or not. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Green.
I just have two quick questions. I do agree that we should be a business-friendly community. We say all the time, it's a mantra, we need economic development. And so I think that our practices and policies should certainly be one that is supportive and friendly to our business community. We need the revenue and we need the other partnership as well. And I do think that we can take a balanced approach, certainly, and one doesn't have to hurt the other as well. I think we should do all that we can to have this vibrant business community and at the same time promote public safety all across our city. To the chief of inspectional services, you noted that there were 96 violations. Over what period of time were those violations? And you also noted that there were a number of violations for sale to minor. How many of those 96 were sales to minors?
Yeah, so those figures are since November of 2023, when ISD became formed effectively. In between that time and now, there have been 96 violations. It's a mixture. I haven't quantified the exact ratio, but I would speculate it's probably about 60%, or maybe a little bit more, of basically flavored tobacco violations and 40% of violations where sales were made to minors.
Okay, all right. Do we have repeat offenders?
Very much we do, and that will become evident. There has been a gap over the past year and a half where the Board of Health was not composed and we did not have the ability to have tobacco hearings. We have a backlog of tobacco hearings that the Human Services Commissioner has begun to hear. And to be frank with this body, there are a number of entities within our city that have such a quantity of violations that they are subject to revocation of their tobacco permits.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Well, this is where I think your role and the commissioner's role is important for education and for public awareness. I think this is very concerning that we have repeat offenders selling to minors in the community. I think that needs to be addressed. And again, and I'll end on this note, to the point of the transferring of license and the administration of the license. I think whatever we propose should absolutely be friendly to our business community. We need that, and we need to balance that with a responsible public health awareness and educational initiative. Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Counselor.
No other questions?
No other questions. Do you have a motion, Counselor?
At this time, I want to thank everybody that came this evening. Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to postpone this until the first finance meeting in September. At that time, all invitees don't need to come back, but I would have the city solicitor at that time and maybe Commissioner McCullough, if she'd like to be here, maybe to update us to see where we're going, what direction we're going, and what how we're moving with this.
Second.
I imagine you'd have the language from the law department at that time.
Yes, that would be great.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to postpone to the first Finance Committee meeting in September. All in favor? All opposed? The matter is postponed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, order transfer of the administration of the Bar Foundation Transportation Manager Grant Funds in the amount of $175,000 from DPW Commissioner to Planning and Economic Development. Invited DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson and/or designee, Interim Planner Elijah Romulus.
Mr. Chairman?
Counselor Farwell.
Mr. Chairman, today I received quite a bit of information from the Old Colony Planning Council about transportation planning services that we already pay for, road safety services and audits. And given the financial presentation that was made by Dr. Clarkson tonight, I'd like to move to table this matter. It can come off the table in the future if we deem it necessary, but I think we have sufficient challenges ahead of us financially before we start creating another position that actually is duplicitous of what we're already paying for through Old Colony Planning Council.
Second.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to table. All in favor of tabling? Matter is tabled. Mr. Clerk.
Item 7, ordered an order dedicating a portion of Tribrew Street in honor of the Boston brothers, Terry Boston Jr. and Marquis Boston. Whereas Terry Boston Jr., age 15, and Marquis Boston, age 18, known affectionately as the Boston brothers, were lifelong residents of the city of Brockton. And whereas Terry Boston Jr. was preparing to enter the 10th grade at Brockton High School, while Marquis Boston had graduated from Brockton High School only months earlier. And whereas on July 18th, 2023, Terry Boston Jr. and Marquis Boston were tragically killed in a motor vehicle crash. And whereas both young men were dedicated football players for Brockton High School and were widely known throughout the community for their leadership among their peers, loved by their coaches and teachers, and the positive energy they brought to their school teammates. Whereas the City Council wishes to honor the memory of Terry Boston Jr. and Marquis Boston and to celebrate the lives and legacies of the Boston brothers and the community they loved. Now therefore be it ordered by the City Council of the City of Brockton as follows, that a portion of Tribrew Street, inclusive of 101 Tribrew Street, is hereby dedicated in memory and honor of Terry Boston Jr. and Marquis Boston, known as the Boston brothers. This dedication shall be honorary and ceremonial. The official legal name of the street shall remain unchanged. The Department of Public Works is authorized and directed to install appropriate commemorative signage, such as secondary plaques reading Boston Brothers Way, at suitable locations along the dedicated portion, consistent with all applicable safety standards and regulations. This order shall take effect upon passage. Invited Chief of Staff Sydney Merrow and/or her designee.
Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, everyone.
Anything you want to say for the council?
I just want to thank the council and especially Councilor Griffin for considering this honor to these young men who were upstanding young men, as young as they were, and had the potential for growth. The family is very grateful that they were honored with getting a posthumous diploma for Mackay, who did not get the opportunity to graduate. Mackay did graduate, Terry did not. So Terry got the posthumous diploma. It's very important to the family. They've lived in Brockton for 6 years now, but the boys have always played sports here, and they continue to have friends in the community who celebrate them by coming to the home and assisting the family with things such as just even putting out the trash or helping mom with shoveling and raking and all those good things. They come and they sit in the boys' rooms and visit, and it's just, this is their home, and they want their sons to be remembered. They have a few fundraisers and a foundation that they've started that have been consistent since right up in, as early as 2 days after the young man died. There was a basketball tournament that's been held every spring, and along with a motorcycle and car fundraiser for the foundation, which has happened consecutively for the last 3 summers, this year being the 3rd. So I just thank you for considering this honor to them, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Council, is there a motion? Councilor Griffin.
I'd just like to say one thing. Sydney, you did a great job bringing this forward. I fully support this. They're a great family that suffered a tremendous loss. And anything we do to keep the memory of these 2 fine young men in everybody's mind, I'm 100% behind it. Again, I want to thank you very much for pushing this forward. I encourage my colleagues tonight to also support this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Is there a motion, Councilor?
I'd like to make a motion to refer this favorably.
Second.
Motion's properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion is approved.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Item 8, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $1,245,000 from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to the Brockton Fire Department. Invited Fire Chief Brian Nardelli and/or designee, DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Chief, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, councilors. Thank you for having us tonight. This is a tremendous honor to be able to accept this grant from the Department of Transportation. With me here tonight is Jim Donovan, the signal foreman for our signal division that does incredible work throughout the city on a regular basis, keeping our entire system working. He also deals with all of the traffic signals throughout the city. So when there's a knockdown, when something happens, Jim's the man that's out there in the snow, sleet, and rain, taking care of all those things with his crew. Jim has worked tirelessly to get this grant up and running, $1.2 million and change. It will not only increase public safety responses in the Oak Street area, but will also increase safety of that road. So if anyone has any questions, Jim knows the inner workings of this. This is not a match, and once we get this moving, we'll be able to start construction.
Thank you, Chief. Councilors.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Is there a hand, Councilor Farwell?
Yeah, you know, just very quickly, Chief, and I posted on social media about this. The fire department does a lot more than just putting out fires and responding to EMS calls. And I think this is a perfect example of where you're going to enhance safety up and down Oak Street with this grant. I would think that Commissioner Hill might be very jealous of that kind of money coming in and having it available. So
Commissioner Hill played a major role in it too, though. So he
very
was part of
strong
it.
work, great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Motion's properly made and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan.
Item 9, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the Comcast revolving fund for FY26 from all cash receipts from Comcast franchise fees in excess of $675,000 pursuant to the cable license contract, and that further that the expenditure from this fund shall not exceed $750,000 without further appropriation during fiscal year 27. Invited CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson and/or his designee.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Good evening, Dr. Clarkson. Has a motion properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Item 10, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the Transportation Program revolving fund for FY27 for the purpose of maintaining the transportation of residents ages 60 and older in the City of Brockton. The Transportation Program revolving fund shall receive the receipt of payments of donations and fees for transportation. Expenditures from the Transportation revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the Director of the Council on Aging, provided that no more than $500,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the Transportation Revolving Fund during the fiscal year 26. The Director of the Council on Aging shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Invited Dr. Troy Clarkson, COA Director Janice Fitzgerald. I did receive an email this afternoon. Ms. Fitzgerald was unable to attend tonight.
Mr. Chairman, this is a reauthorization, really the same as last year. Dr. Clarkson's had his moment in the sun tonight, so I'm going to move to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. Dr. Clarkson, we might not let you talk in front of this council again. You're going to afflict us with bad news. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Item 11, order that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $1,031,000 from the United States Department of Justice to the Finance Department. Invited Dr. Troy Clarkson and/or his designee.
Dr. Clarkson, looks like you get a shot.
All right. I will be brief, Mr. Chairman, and my designee tonight, among other esteemed people, is Fire Chief Brian Nardelli. So very quickly, this was what we used to call an earmark, is now called congressionally directed spending. This money was passed by the Congress and signed by the President to help us with equipping the public safety building. Want to give Congressman Lynch credit, and he was supported by both Senators Markey and Warren. So this money is available. I have asked the chiefs to designate what they'd like to spend the money on. Chief Nardelli will speak very briefly about some of his ideas. Chief Perez has talked about vehicles and other items for the police department. So it really is an opportunity to meet that new building with significant equipment purchases.
Thank you, Dr. Clarkson. One of the things that's interesting, the reason I asked Dr. Clarkson if I could speak was over the last couple of years, we've been very successful with grants through the assistance to firefighter grants through FEMA, a number of different things. They've bought us from fire trucks to new SCBAs, breathing apparatus, things of that nature. One stumbling block we've come upon has been portable radios that our firefighters wear every day and communicate with. We have, over the last couple of years, found it difficult to find grants in that manner. When these monies came forward, I spoke directly to Dr. Clarkson about this, and he knows our struggles, where our struggles have been with trying to gain funds for these portable radios. This is a deal breaker. I mean, a real incredible piece of legislation, a grant that it was received by the city, so that now we were able to buy these portable radios because we've been hunting high and low to be able to find some funds for those as of late. We'll be able to spend about $320,000 of this money for that. So it works out great in not having to chip into the city's funds.
Councilor Azak.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. I'm just assuming, but I've learned not to assume this is a no-match grant.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor, is there a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full City Council.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Item 12, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the demolition revolving fund for the purpose of helping to fund costs in connection with demolition of buildings in the City of Brockton. The fund shall receive the receipt of payments of all demolition charges of the City of Brockton. Expenditures from the demolition revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the building superintendent with the written approval of the mayor, provided that no more than $110,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the demolition revolving fund during FY27. The building superintendent shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Invited Building Commissioner William Forte and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson and/or designee.
Motion to recommend favorably. It's a reauthorization, the same as last year.
Second. Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Item 13, ordered that the City of Brockton appropriates the amount of $1,600,000 for purchasing rubbish barrels. To meet this appropriation, the city treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7-1, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the city therefore. Further ordered that the city treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify under General Law, Chapter 44, 24A, any and all bonds or notes of the city authorized by this order, and to provide such information and execute such documents as the Municipal Finance Oversight Board of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts may require. Invited Treasurer Martin Brophy and/or designee, DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson and/or designee.
Dr. Clarkson.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll speak very briefly and then hand it over to my friend and colleague, Commissioner Hill. And Marty is here, can speak to it as well. We need the authorization from this council to borrow the money. This is not proposed to be a traditional borrowing with a 20 or 30-year amortization. As we mentioned, when we ask you to increase the fees, the money to pay for this is in the budget. It's approximately $550,000 in each budget. So we anticipate being able to pay back the purchase of these new barrels over the next 3 years. But we do need your authorization for that initial borrowing to have the cash on hand to acquire those new barrels. And with that, I'll defer to my colleague.
Commissioner?
No, I think Dr. Clarkson presented that quite eloquently. I mean, this is just a standard purchase made through a traditional contract with a Sourcewell contract, which we often use for the purchase or acquisition of goods. It was done at a discounted rate. It's not just the purchase of the barrels, it's the purchase of the barrels, which includes the establishment of a new list, delivery, and disposal of the old barrels.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. So I sent a number of questions and concerns by email, but I didn't receive anything back. I know today was busy. So let me ask my questions now. The first one is, when the city initially provided the trash cans we're using right now, and that was in 2017?
2016 or 17, yep.
16, yes.
17.
Councilor Azek was involved. Republic bought the trash cans for us, and the city repaid Republic on a monthly basis. And Republic was able to buy those cans at a lower price than the city was able to at the time, get them at state contract prices. And so I'm wondering, has that option been explored? Why are we getting them outright and not going through Republic to perhaps get a better price for them?
So we did explore that option initially, Councilor. We did call Republic. That was the first person that we called, both to leverage their purchasing ability with a vendor and to see if we could use that finance option to finance the carts. That finance option was done over a period, I think, of 5 years. Because our contract right now, the last extension will be in July of 27. It does not give us that leeway to make that acquisition and finance it through Republic Services. We did attempt to do that. We also attempted to finance the barrels through a financing company. However, the way procurement laws are written, that would enter us into a service agreement. You can't enter into a service agreement through a state contract or through any municipal purchasing contract. So this was, I guess, the last resort.
Okay, and I did inquire with Mike Morris about were procurement laws followed. And he said he understood that DPW was looking into purchasing from both the statewide contract list and a purchasing cooperative. So which one was it?
So we began looking at the FAC 113, which is the Combis contract with Schaefer Barrels. Schaefer Barrels is the vendor that Republic Services uses. So not only will we be able to take advantage of the state contract, we were able to take advantage of some more discounting from Schaefer due to the relationship they had with Republic. The Sourcewell contract and the state contract are almost identical.
Well, true confession, I actually borrowed the sample trash can that was obtained. It was down at the recycling depot. It's blue. And one of the guys put it in my back seat for me, and I could not get it out tonight for love or money. So if anybody wants to walk by my car, I have the barrel in the back seat, but I couldn't bring it up. I'm sorry. And was there a written quote or a signed contract for the new trash barrels?
Yes.
And do we get to see it? I mean, you know, for a borrowing of $1.5 million, we really didn't get any bedtime reading with this.
So I did get that this afternoon, some of your further questions. I do have to track down the final draft because there were about 5 or 6 different iterations when we were looking at the financing option with the financing company. The amount of barrels that we had initially ordered changed off a little bit, where we were under the impression we were going to order 27,000 barrels, but after really digging into the amount of accounts that we had, we actually have 26,800 accounts. Typically, we order an extra 1,000 barrels so that we have them in stock, so that if there are issues throughout the year, that we can get those barrels right out to people. All these barrels come with a 10-year warranty. In doing that last time around, it prevented us from having to purchase any more barrels almost for the entirety of that 10-year period. So I will get you that tomorrow.
Yes, I must say the barrels that I'm using at my home right now are heavier and have held up very well compared to the one stuck in my back seat. So what about a written quote for disposing of the existing trash barrels?
So all of this quote includes everything. So it not only includes the acquisition of the new barrel, it includes the recovery service, which is part of the quote. It details exactly how much per barrel that service costs. I have an example of it in front of me now, but this is a older version of the executed document. So to give you an idea, you know, the barrel itself costs $47.33 or 37 cents. The assembly and getting that here is $4.54 per barrel. The distribution services are 25 cents per barrel. The RFID and providing us with a detailed list, which includes the GIS layer, is 10 cents per barrel, and then the disposal is $6.72 per barrel. So roughly $60 per barrel to get them here, get them delivered, get them disposed, and it's over a 10-day period. So this is kind of a hands-off thing for the city where the barrels will all come in over a 10-day period. They will be delivered on trash day. They will get to probably half of every route per week. So, you know, the first day they will go out and trail behind the trash service. They will retrieve the old barrels and put the new barrels in place.
Okay. And to save that $6.17 per old barrel, can the old barrels be retained by residents?
It's not something that we considered, so I guess I could get back to you after thinking through that a little bit. Yeah. It does have a city insignia on it. I don't want to create more issues in the future where somebody could say that they had they didn't get a barrel, you know, because the barrels are being retrieved and then put out. So the barrel is not retrieved, the new barrel won't go out. I just feel like it may add to a little bit of confusion in the delivery process, but we can look at that.
And when do you anticipate delivering these barrels approximately?
Sometime around late September and September 21st area, something like that.
And is there a written contract amendment or an agreement in writing with Republic setting forth that Republic will continue collecting trash in these larger barrels for the same price?
We don't have a commitment from Republic in writing, but I have spoken with them at length. At the end of the day, the trash is the trash. They have, the contract is based on tonnage. They don't expect any increase in tonnage, even with a bigger barrel, because most of the people that have that excess tonnage are putting them in green bags, which goes towards the tonnage anyway.
But how could that be if they're going up 30 pounds each?
What it will do is reduce the amount of money we take in for green bags.
Sure.
So, you know, we're going from a 35 to a 65, which in essence is almost 2.5 times bigger based on the way that the barrel is configured. And I'm sure you can see that looking at the old barrel, the way it cones in at the bottom, as opposed to the new barrel where it's almost a straight shot down. So They have done this in many other communities where they've gone to a larger size barrel and not seen any influx in trash. So there wasn't any concern about that from Republic side.
Okay, I'd love to see that in writing.
Sure.
Okay. And also, so the price is going up. I'm sorry, how are we paying for it? Who's paying that 1.6 million? Is this coming out of our enterprise fund?
That's correct. This year, so we had assumed that we could make this acquisition through that, through that purchasing, I guess we'll call it a lease. It's a lease to own. It was a 3-year deal. It was part of that Sourcewell contract that we spoke of a little bit earlier. However, you know, in having that discussion with procurement, because the deal in essence is with the financing company and not with the distributor, we'd be purchasing through a service. You're not allowed to purchase through a service, which caused us to kind of reconfigure how we were going to make the acquisition.
Okay. The new carts, as proposed, will be substantially bigger and heavier. What provisions are being made by your office for seniors and disabled residents who cannot physically handle the larger barrels or don't produce enough trash to use them?
I mean, it's going to be a case-by-case basis. If we need to hold on to some of the older barrels for elderly people to supply smaller barrels to those elderly folks so that they can still get those barrels out to curbside, we will do that. And, you know, this is I guess, a general program. There are going to be, you know, one-off situations or, you know, 50 to 100 situations that we may have to accommodate, and we're certainly willing to do that.
Wouldn't it be easier to just make available green bags to people who need them at a reduced price versus incurring all of this expense with these larger barrels that are going to impact older folks and disabled folks?
So I think when we looked at this program as a whole, and we looked at the increase as a whole, one of the biggest concerns that we saw was the size of the trash barrel. I'm not saying that every single person had that complaint, but more than half of the complaints that came from constituents were about the size of the barrel. So in the significant increase in the new trash rate, we felt as though we wanted to make sure that people felt like they were getting something for their increase. And this was really the only way that we could kind of accommodate that change. You know, the new rate will support the new barrels. It also will support the offset that, you know, we'll lose a little bit of revenue on bag sales. We know that. We don't know what that impact will be, but we're pretty confident that with the new rate structure that we can kind of break even, I guess, or we'll be in a comfortable position where we'll have some retained earnings at the end of the year, which should help us going forward.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, no one has called to say, yeah, baby, bigger barrels. But I have received calls and emails and text messages from constituents saying that they don't need an increased barrel size. And interestingly, they're unwilling to pay more to subsidize residents with larger families who are generating more trash. And what would you say to that? What is your response to that?
I mean, it's kind of hard, I guess, to pinpoint a response to that, Councilor. I mean,
Me too.
It's a general program. You know, everybody has their own personal feelings on trash. I guess I'd have to really kind of put more thought to that before I just threw out a response.
Okay, and you should know the notice that was on the utility bills, I paid mine today, about, yes, this is happening. I think prompted a lot of people to call and be upset, at least in Ward 4. I'm very concerned about this. We started the evening with Mr. Clarkson's presentation, which put the fear of the financial lord in me. And I'm just very concerned about affording this and about, you know, choosing our borrowing and our debt very carefully in light of what is ahead of us. So I'm just not sure about this. And I appreciate your responses to my questions. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Farwell, followed by Counselor Tavares.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The barrels are ordered. They're being produced, I take it?
Correct.
Okay. By the way, they're going to be black again, which I hope not, because in dark weather during the winter months, some people have them out in the street. And are they black again?
They are black.
Okay. So explain this to me. You need a borrowing authorization from the city council. You didn't have it, but yet you went ahead and you ordered the production of the barrels and apparently have bound us to this course of action. How do you do that legally? Why would we do that? I mean, if you don't want to, this is the second time the DPW has done this, and I don't mean you personally. This is the second time the DPW has entered into discussions with a trash hauler, in this case with an outside vendor. Mayor Sullivan approved a contract amendment, and we found ourselves behind the 8 ball, and we had to hike trash fees. Now we're going to have new trash barrels, which are going to take $500,000 a year out of the trash enterprise account for the next 3 years, which only hastens the time when we're going to have to go back to the people of this city and say we need a trash fee increase. But tell me legally how, and who made that decision? Who made the decision to charge ahead? We don't need the council to authorize the bond borrowing order. We're going to do what we want. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, and believe me, I'm as uncomfortable as you are. We know each other. I've been here 11 years. I know everyone in this room. I know all the people out in the audience, but it has to stop. It has to stop. This city has to follow the ordinary, logical, legal process for borrowing money, getting council authorization, and deciding what they want to do with the money that's borrowed. And yeah, I am on a soapbox because we had an opportunity to go to community-based organizations, Cape Verdean Association, Haitian Association, to the different business groups, Montello Business Association, Campello, and survey, do you want a larger trash barrel? Maybe people don't want their neighborhood, particularly if they live near a multifamily dwelling with all these new barrels out there. But getting back to my, I'll get off my soapbox for a minute and say, legally, how do you go ahead and decide that you're going to have this program when you didn't have the authorization from the council?
I'll gladly answer that, Counselor. And Commissioner, if I recite a sequence of events that is not your memory, then please interrupt me. But I believe the way that this proceeded was that the barrels were ordered by the DPW under the belief that they would be able to pay for them over a 3-year period through a lease purchase, which is the way it was purchased the last time. A 3-year lease purchase does not require a vote of the city council.
It's getting late. Let me call a timeout and say respectfully, you don't operate city government and finances under the belief that we're going to be all right. I mean, you and I know that, Troy. Come on.
Well, if you, understood. I'm reciting to you the events as I understood that they occurred. And so a lease up to 3 years does not require a vote of the city council. Once the barrels were ordered, then I think the commissioner and all of us learned that that lease purchase was not possible. And so I actually came up with the idea as an alternative to borrow the money under more traditional means, but amortize it, as I mentioned, over 3 years rather than 10 or 20 or 30. So if the, and let me say that in this instance, this is one of those enterprise funds that I mentioned in my earlier presentation that actually, based on the fact that you increase the fees, can accommodate the borrowing and can accommodate the additional costs. So should you choose not to authorize the borrowing, then the enterprise fund will have to pay cash for them out of this year's budget, which will then just create an imbalance that will have to be covered in next year's budget. So although the way that it unfolded was certainly not the way we would prefer to do it, this is a better course of action, I think, than having the enterprise fund be in a deficit next year that will have to be covered by next year's revenues.
All right, well, I'm just going to conclude by saying this was a terrible decision to make without going through the normal steps of councilors. This is what we'd like to do. This is what it's going to cost. Would you authorize, would you recommend favorably the borrowing, and then you borrow the money? And I don't know how many times it's going to happen before it catches on that I don't think this community can operate that way. I mean, your presentation tonight was proof positive that we have got to watch every single little thing we do, because if we don't, there can be a cascading effect, and before you know it, we're way out of balance and we can't get ourselves back to where we need to be. So I appreciate the comments tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Tavares, followed by Councilor Green.
Good evening, Mr. Troy, DPW.
Good evening.
Actually, first I'm gonna ask you one question, then after that I'm gonna be comment something. Can you explain why the city used this type of contract instead of the tradition? Why we use this contract?
I'm sorry, could you?
Can you explain why the city used this type of contract instead of the tradition one?
For the acquisition of the barrels?
Yes.
So using the state contract, which is what we ended up using, FAC 113, that is a typical use of the state contract, I would say. State contract gives you an opportunity to look at several vendors, not necessarily one, and try to determine one, what you're looking for, and two, if the value from another vendor, I guess, is if you have more of an appetite financially to make that acquisition. So we didn't, from a procurement standpoint, using the state contract, that's how we would have done it anytime.
All right. Then do you have opportunity to looking for another vendor, for lower rate?
Correct.
After lower, you can find it.
Correct.
Well, I'm just gonna comment, I agree totally with my colleague, Councilor Farrell, because I think we've been talked and discussed about sometime the city make their own decision without councilor, and then when the consequences come, the council got to deal with that. I think it's great when we work for the people, because in the day we work for the city, the taxpayers. Any decision the city take, it should come to the council and work together, and also to give the council opportunity to talk to constituents, let them know what's going on and look into the issue before any decisions be made. I think we should work this way, and partnership and collaboration also for us to get opportunity to do word meeting or talk to constituents, let them know. Because in the day, we're being elected by them. We work by them. We're here to represent them. We're here to make decisions on their behalf. And then I think it's not going to look in the way every time, the city making a decision, here you go. If anything failed coming in, we got to deal with that. We done on the past with the increase the trash. I think we need to kind of literally careful. Work together in partnership and collaborations as well, also to give us opportunity to work with our constituent, that's all I have to tell, because we don't want to go into the crush again and make the decision, because we have to make the decision because we don't have no choice. Because at the end of the day, it's affected, those people elect us to be here. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Green.
I have a couple questions, Commissioner. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Clarkson. So I've received a number of calls from constituents in my ward, Ward 1, and overwhelmingly, I'm hearing I do not need a larger and a heavier barrel. If I produce more trash, I want to maintain the option of purchasing a green bag. What is currently in place works fine. Okay. And I think we need to give attention to that. I have a lot of seniors, elderly in my ward. And as stated earlier, this significantly larger bin presents a challenge to them. I know you noted earlier that this can be looked at on a case-by-case basis. How would that work when you have both a 65-gallon and a 35-gallon barrel on our street? How would that work relative to the trash apparatus picking up those bins? Because one of the things that was noted in one of our earlier meetings is that we would not be able to have both. Because the question was asked, could we have an option? If we want to keep the 35, can we keep it? And whoever wants the other 65 can do that. And the response was the trash apparatus is designed for, or will be designed for, one or the other in terms of the arm. So how would that work if there is an option to take this on a case-by-case basis, and we don't know how many individuals would opt into this case-by-case basis? I would surmise that in my ward, a significant number of homeowners would elect for this option, and they have valid reasons to say, I want to maintain my 35-gallon barrel. So how would this work in terms of picking up trash when you have both on the streets? And while you answer that, could you also address the delivery period of 10 days? And I would assume that over the course of those 10 days, you will have both 35 and 65-gallon barrels on the street. So how would that impact trash services?
So to answer your first question, Council, I had spoken at length with the vendor Republic about the concern with the larger barrel versus the smaller barrel with the apparatus itself, because it's I guess we'll call it like a touchless system where the truck actually retrieves the trash through a arm that applies pressure. There was no concern at all from their standpoint. They actually ran a test with the current vehicles that we use in a larger barrel that they had in stock, a 65-gallon barrel that they had in stock. If it were going the other way, there would have had to have been adjustments made to firm the grab, I guess, a little bit. But when it goes the opposite way, the machine knows that after it hits a certain amount of pressure, that the barrel can be picked up. So from a collection standpoint, it shouldn't be an issue. From a delivery standpoint, to answer your other question, there will at no point be two barrels in the street. So the idea behind the 10 days is that they know that they're only going to be able to get half of a route per day done. And what they'll do is go out after the trash collection has happened. People will leave their barrels. There'll be plenty of notifications sent out The recovery team will go out, they will recover a barrel and put a barrel in place where all the barrels exist. So at no point will somebody have a 65 and a 35 at one point. The 35 will be retrieved, the 65 will be put in place.
So that's actually, what I'm referring to. I'm not referring to an individual having both on their property. I know that wouldn't happen. But across the other city, you will have both because you're not able to retrieve all of the 35 prior to another trash pickup in the city. So at some point in the city, you will have both. And so the question is, how would that impact trash pickup if you have trash out on the street with a 35 in one location and a 65 in
It won't
another
affect it at
location?
all. Because the trucks themselves are capable of picking up both barrels, either it will be picking up a 65-gallon barrel or a 35-gallon barrel. There is no adjustment that needs to be made on the truck.
Okay, all right. That was not the impression I got before, so that's good. That's good to know. So the adjustment is made?
Only if the barrel size gets reduced.
Okay.
If the barrel size gets increased, the hydraulics understand the way that the pressure systems work, that as soon as the pressure starts, and I'm by no means a mechanic, but it's all pressure related. So once a certain amount of pressure is applied and there's restriction, I'm assuming, they will pick the barrel up.
Okay, all right, great. So the last extension with Republic is July of 2027, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. How would this change in the barrel size affect the other contract and the extension of the contract? Would this be somewhat of a substantial or a material change to the other contract?
So the only material change, I guess, that could be subject to discussion would be the amount of trash that's collected. And like I had said in the beginning, because the trash contract is built around a tonnage, and traditionally they do not see an increase in tonnage with an increase in barrel size, especially with the pay-as-you-throw system, the bags. Because the bags go towards our tonnage, increasing the barrel size is either going to mean that you won't have completely full 65-gallon barrels, or you'll have less full 65-gallon barrels and a lot less pay-as-you-throw bags.
Okay.
So it will have an effect on the overall revenue that we see, but it won't have an overall effect on the tonnage.
So if traditionally we don't see a change in the other tonnage with the size of the barrel, if I'm understanding you correctly, why are we changing the other size of the barrel?
Well, there's a few reasons. One, we do see quite a bit of waste from ripping of the green bags. So when the bags go out, when they go out the night before, we do see animals that get into the bags get ripped, they get, tossed around, we have to pick up trash. And two, there's no obligation to purchase those bags any longer for any folks. So, we did increase the trash fee with the intent of increasing the trash barrel size. Now, that has an effect on our overall revenue, but that was built into the initial rate fee when we presented that to you.
Okay.
And I can give you the figures on that if I'm happy to provide those figures to you. And I'm happy to provide the estimates that we think we'll see from reduced revenue from that. The trash company has actually advocated for this, to be honest with you, because they feel as though it puts their drivers in a safer position where they don't have to get out of the truck anymore to pick up green bags, presumably, as long as that 65-gallon barrel is going to prevent people from purchasing bags. So it's, less I guess, stringent on their drivers, as, you know, with labor intense on their drivers, not having to get out of the truck because they can't pick up those bags. With the automated system, they have to do that manually. They don't have to get out of the truck. By not getting out of the truck, it doesn't put them out into traffic or present a situation where they may get hurt. So I was actually surprised at that response, but that's how they look at it, that they fully support this change.
Okay, all right. And final question for you and Dr. Clarkson. Is it fair to say that if the new barrel and the cost of the new barrel, if that was not a factor in this equation, then there would be a lower increase on that quarterly fee that residents are looking at?
I think, Council, when we discussed this previously, the fee was not supporting the operation. So could the fee increase have been smaller? I mean, the answer is always yes, but we also like to build in a cushion to accommodate, as I mentioned earlier, increases in the contract or increases in the cost for any of the enterprises. So we had recommended the fee increase as it was to be able to increase, not only to accommodate the cost of the barrels, but of the inevitable increases in the cost of trash disposal. So it's hard to say definitively, but I think the fee that the council ultimately supported was necessary to support the operation of the enterprise fund.
Okay. How much of this 1.6 is the actual cost of acquiring, delivering of the new barrel and disposal of the old barrel versus how much is a cushion, if you will? How much of this 1.6?
This 1.6 is the entirety of the borrowing. That's for the whole package.
And there's no cushion built into that 1.6?
The only cushion, Councilor, like I said, is that we always, as we always have in the past, we purchase an extra 1,000 barrels to prevent lag time or to replace barrels as there are issues out in the field. Not every barrel is warranted. These barrels are warranted for 10 years. That warranty is pretty robust, but there are situations where you know, a warranty won't cover a barrel, and we will provide barrel to people as replacements. That's also for new homes as they come on, so that we have extra barrels as people start using the trash service that may not have used the trash service before, as houses are built. So other than that 1,000 barrel cushion, I guess we could call it, other than that excess 1,000 barrels, there is no cushion in this.
Okay.
Let me answer that in a different way, because I think you were asking maybe a different question than the one the commissioner answered. The increase in the fee covered more than just the cost of the barrels. And when we asked you to increase the fee, we actually provided a spreadsheet that I can resend to you that showed where that increase in the fee was going to, because part of it did meet the additional costs of the contract because we weren't collecting enough in the enterprise at that time to meet the current contract costs.
Okay, all righty. So it was actually both I was referring to. So so I do understand from what we approved previously that there is an increase. There's a cushion, I'm sorry, in the rate increase that the council approved. And what I was asking tonight is that 1.6, whether there is a cushion built into that, or 100% of this 1.6 is going towards the purchase, acquisition, distribution, and disposal of the
barrels. Yeah, so the entirety of the borrowing will go towards the acquisition of the barrels.
Great, all right. Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? Counselor Farwell.
I've spoken before. I don't know if anyone else needs to speak, but.
Counselor Azak.
Thank you. So
We'll
I
come
just
back.
want to make a quick comment. So when this came before us, before ordinance, one of the major issues, we knew we had to increase the fees because we weren't able to pay the bill. So part of, in speaking with majority of the public at the time, that was the reason the larger barrels came up, because people felt that the barrels were too small. So that's how we got here. Whether it's perfect worlds, no. I mean, I've gotten complaints also from constituents and residents that say, you know, they're not going to need a larger barrel. But I remember when we originally, back in 2017, were discussing renewing the contract, the reason for the larger recycling, a smaller trash barrel, was we hoped people would recycle more. And we realized that people weren't recycling more, they were just throwing out more trash, and that's why they complained about the smaller trash barrels. But anyway, I want to remind everybody, the reason they went ahead and ordered these barrels is because that was one of the major problems that residents said that the barrels were too small. And that's why they were, you know, they felt that if we increased the size of the barrel, that's what would make sense in increasing the fees. Whether we agree with it or not, that's, you know, everybody's opinion, but I just want to remind everybody that that's how we got here. Thank you.
Are there any counselors who have not yet had a chance to speak who would like to speak before we go to a second round? Seeing none, Counselor Farwell.
This is a very quick second round. The fact is, we raised the trash fee. I did not agree with it, but democracy, we raised the fee. And then we said, well, wait a minute, we know this hurts, so we're going to give you a bigger trash barrel to kind of offset that. But wait, there's more. You're going to pay for the bigger trash barrel, $1.6 million to have them made, delivered, and the old ones taken away. Now, if that's somehow rewarding people or ameliorating the trash fee increase, I'm not getting it. And I'm just going to throw this out there, and it's not directed at you, Commissioner Hill. Under Chapter 324 of the Acts of 1990, the mayor, any department head, any member of the school committee who incurs a liability in excess of an available appropriation can be held personally liable for that amount of money. And I'm not saying anyone's done that. I'm just saying I would very carefully, if I were a department head or an elected official, read Chapter 324 of the Acts of 1990, because there are people out there who might want to file suit against someone for allegedly doing that. I say allegedly. And I would say to my colleague from Ward 7, there is a process for borrowing money, of getting authorization, and then deciding that's the purpose for which we borrow the money. And I understand what was discussed in ordinance, and I understand there were anecdotal stories, but the process for a city like Brockton is so important. That's my own.
And I agree with you, Counselor. I didn't disagree with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Counselor. Before we proceed toward a motion, I do have just a question as a point of clarification. Dr. Clarkson, this is about the expense of $1.6 million, bonding out and expending $1.6 million. Without this, it was stated, you know, we don't vote for this. Without this, it was stated that we would hit an imbalance. What I take from that is that this money has already been promised. The deal has been signed, and whether we vote for this tonight or not, somebody's expecting the city to put up $1.6 million to pay for new barrels.
That is correct.
So the question of a new barrel is moot. The question is more on the procedure and the route that was taken to get here.
Correct.
I understand that. I think the route taking was improper. I think this is the kind of thing that we've expressed concern about for years. But the money has been spent or promised. Councilors, is there a motion?
Roll call vote, please.
Second.
I need a motion. We'll move on.
Has to be a vote one way or the other.
All right.
You can vote to postpone, you can vote to, there has to be a motion to do something, and we can't move to the next item.
Take a motion to postpone. If nobody wants to make a motion, recommend favorably.
I'll make a
Councilman
motion to
Castro.
postpone because I'd like to see all this written information that hasn't been provided to us to show us that it actually has been ordered and the prices and all that. So I'll make a motion to postpone to the next Finance Committee meeting.
Would you still rather roll call, Councilor?
No, not on a postponement.
Councilor, roll call.
That's fine.
Motion's been made and seconded to postpone this matter. Do you have a date?
To the next Finance Committee meeting.
Next Finance Committee meeting. All in favor of postponing? All opposed? The matter is postponed.
Thank you.
Item 14, ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending the City Council approve the expenditure of $751,303.59 from DPW Refuse Purchase of Service to Republic Services. Invited DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson and/or designee.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. This and others items on your agenda are unpaid bills from last fiscal year. This is, as I noted in my memo to you yesterday, an unpaid bill from last fiscal year to Republic Services.
Need a motion? Councilor Farwell.
This one's got to be paid. I'll bite the bullet and recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to recommend favorably. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Item 15, order that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $850,000 from U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to the Department of Public Works Stormwater. Invited DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson and/or designee.
Doctor.
This is a grant, and the paperwork, I believe, is in your packet, as I noted in my memo to you, from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it is to assist with the Salisbury Brook culvert repair. Commissioner Hill can certainly answer any detailed questions you have on the project.
Councilors, questions for the commissioner? Councilor Farwell.
Does this cover the Keith Field culvert in its entirety?
No. The approximate cost of the Keith Field culvert in its entirety would be probably somewhere in the ballpark of $2.4 million. We don't know from a construction side of things what the bids will come back at. The plan is it's already been fully designed. It's due to be advertised at the end of the month. We expect that cost to come in somewhere around $2.2 million for the construction. But this will be applied towards that $2.2 million construction phase.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilors, is there a motion or any other questions?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Item 16, order that a petition to the Great and General Court accompanied by a bill for the special law relating to the City of Brockton be filed with an attested copy of this order. Be and hereby is approved under Clause 1 of Section 8 of Article 2 as amended of the amendments to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to the end that legislation be adopted precisely as follows, except for clerical or editorial changes of form only. An act relative to the membership of the Conservation Commission of the city of Brockton. Notwithstanding Section 8C of Chapter 40 of the general laws, the mayor, subject to the approval of the city council, may appoint 3 alternate members to the City of Brockton Conservation Commission for terms not to exceed 3 years. The chairman of the Conservation Commission may designate any of the alternate members to sit on the commission in the case of absence, inability to act, or conflict of interest on the part of a member of the commission, or in the event of a vacancy on the Conservation Commission until a vacancy is filled in accordance with said Section 8C of said Chapter 40. Invited Mayor Moises Rodriguez and/or designee, Conservation Agent Kyle Holder and/or designee.
Chairman.
All right. Councilor Griffin.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone this to the first FinCom in March.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to postpone this. All in favor? All opposed? The matter is postponed. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank Conservation Commissioner Joyce Forrest for your patience and your attendance. Thank you.
Item 17, ordered that the city pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 53A and 53A.5, hereby accepts the following donation of $500 from Plymouth County District Attorney's Office to the Brockton Fire Department. Invited Fire Chief Brian Nardelli and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clausen and/or designee.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, councilors. This is a donation from the DA's office. They get a larger tranche of money from the federal government that is sent to them for child fire service education, violence education, things of that nature. They are then able to then dole that money out in $500 increments. This was donated by DA Cruz to us. It will be used. There's no match of any kind. This will be used in the SAFE program, firefighter Peter Reardon, to purchase equipment that he can't purchase through the SAFE grant that we received from the Department of Fire Services.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Motion properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, councilors.
Item 18, order that the city council reauthorize the immunization revolving fund for the purpose of funding custodial fees. The revolving fund shall capture reimbursements from the administration of vaccines, replenishing funds spent on vaccine efforts. Expenditures from the immunization revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, provided that no more than $250,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the immunization revolving fund during FY27. The Commissioner of Health and Human Services shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E.5. Invited Commissioner Dr. Waterzar McCullough and/or designee and Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening.
If I just, this is similar to the other revolving funds that you have approved and renewed. Since I am speaking on this one very quickly, I know Councilor Nicastro had some questions on existing balances. So with your indulgence, very, very quickly, the demolition revolving fund has a balance of $12,000. Cable franchise revolving fund has about $1.5 million. This one that is before you has zero. Has not had any activity since it was created. The transportation revolving fund has zero, no activity since it was created. And the vacant abandoned fund, which is coming up, is about $990,000 in it. So this is just like the others, a requested renewal of the fund.
Thank you.
Councilors? Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Item 19, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $6,450 from Massachusetts Health Officers Association to Brockton Public Safety Departments. Invited Commissioner Dr. Waterzar McCullough and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Commissioner. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening. It's stated that it's supposed to be for public safety departments. I'm not sure if that's correct.
That's how it came to us.
Okay. Yeah.
What should it be?
It should be ISD because they're the ones who enact all inspections when it comes to tobacco.
If we could entertain a motion to amend the order to read to ISD.
Second.
Motion has been properly made and seconded to amend the order. All in favor of the amendment? All opposed?
Now you can talk on it.
So, yeah, so this grant came to us And it's just really for training purposes, education. It's not much of a grant, almost $7,000, but it's really just dedicated to ISD and the work that they do.
Councilman Castro.
Good evening. Thank you for still being with us. So I read the paperwork, and it said it's a tobacco control grant. It's for merchant education and to retain store inspectors. And I just wondered how you're going to use it. I guess that's how, right? Okay.
Yep.
That sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Do you have a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item 20, ordered in accordance with the general laws of Massachusetts, Chapter 44, recommending the City Council approve the expenditure of $218,929.98 from Human Resources Benefits to Cafeteria Plan Advisors, $2,156.25, to Blue Cross Blue Shield, $216,773.73. Invited Director Sandra Knight and/or designee, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HR Director Sandra Knight asked that I represent her, was unable to be here this evening. This is a routine unpaid bills. Just to note, I think in the past, these things were just routinely paid, and so we've been vigilant about flagging them when they're received after the first of the year. It's no reflection on the department by any means. It's the vendor sending it late, so we properly send it before you for approval.
Councilors? The motion.
Stop.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Councilors, I'm going to declare a brief recess. Councilman Castro, we need a quorum.
Could have got somebody else.
Let's not make this long.
This is a tough group.
Councilors, we are back. There is a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion properly made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Item 20, order that the City Council reauthorize the vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund for the purpose of maintaining the abandoned buildings registry as well as the closing, boarding up, and care of vacant and abandoned buildings. The vacant and abandoned building revolving fund shall receive the receipts of payments of fines and fees for the registration of vacant and abandoned buildings. Expenditures from the vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the mayor or their designee, provided that no more than $250,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the vacant and abandoned building revolving fund during FY27. The mayor or their designee shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Invited Interim Building Commissioner William Forte and/or designees, CFO Dr. Troy Clarkson.
Commissioner, Doctor, good evening.
Good evening.
Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 22, resolved, be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Mayor Moises Rodriguez, Chief Brenda Perez, or designee of the Brockton Police Department, Chief Brian Nardelli, or designee of the Brockton Fire Department, DPW Commissioner Patrick Hiller as designee, and Stephen Hook, or designee of the Brockton Emergency Management Agency, to appear before the Brockton City Council to discuss and to provide a comprehensive report on the recent public safety incidents throughout the city, including but not limited to the recent watch parties or other large gatherings, including the planning, coordination, and operational response undertaken by each department, the costs associated with responding to these incidents, including police, fire, EMS, DPW, and any mutual aid and/or overtime expenses, the number of injuries, arrests, citations, or other enforcement actions resulting from these events, lessons learned from these recent incidents, and the city's plans, preparedness, and interdepartmental coordination for managing similar events and mitigating crime and public disturbances throughout the remainder of the summer.
Councilor Green.
Mr. Chair. Motion to postpone until first FinCom meeting in September.
Second.
Motion properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The matter is postponed.
Item 21, resolved, be it resolved by the Brockton City Council to invite Yolando Spinola, Jed Resco, Isabel Lopez, and Samira Murillo with the Brockton Transportation Safety Coalition, and Mary Waldron with the Champion Institute to appear before the Finance Committee to discuss recommended actions for supporting safer, more walkable, and equitable streets in the city of Brockton. Invited Yolando Spinola, Jed Resco, Isabel Lopez, Samira Murillo, and Mary Waldron.
Good evening. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, good evening, member of the City Council. It has been a very interesting night learning as well, and I feel sorry. I have a youth that they came to the meeting, but unfortunately they needed to leave because their presence was very important related with the conversation that we are going to have tonight. But okay. My name is Samira Murillo, and I am here tonight representing the Brockton Workers Alliance, and most importantly, the many residents whose daily life are affected by the way we plan or fail to plan our city. I have lived in Brockton for 15 years. Brockton is the place where I have raised my family and where I have dedicated much of my time to serving and organizing in our community. But after 15 years, it is difficult for me to say that I have witnessed the major changes our residents deserve when it comes to mobility, accessibility, and safety. Mobility is not just about transportation. Mobility means that the young person can walk to school safely. Mobility is a public health issue because risking your life while trying to get to the doctor's appointment or going food shopping should not be an issue. It means that an elderly resident can cross the street without being afraid that the light will change before they reach the other side. It means that the person with a disability can actually use our sidewalks. It means that the mother with a stroller can get to a bus stop safely. And it means that someone who does not own a car still has the right to participate fully in the life of this city. At BWA, we hear directly from residents about dangerous intersections, missing or inadequate sidewalks, poor lighting, unsafe bus stops, transportation delays, and streets where people simply do not feel safe walking. And we have to ask ourselves, how long are we going to wait? Does another family in Brockton need to lose a loved one before? Does another family in Brockton need to lose a loved one before we wake up and take action? We cannot wait for another tragedy before deciding that planning and mobility matter. That is why having a dedicated planning professional is so important for Brockton. This position is not simply another employee or another line in the city budget. It is an investment in Brockton's future. We need someone who can look at the whole picture: housing, transportation, pedestrian safety, accessibility, economic development, youth, senior, people with disabilities, and the neighborhoods that have been overlooked for years. And that planning must include the voices of the people who actually live here, that actually is us, and many other more. Addressing transportation insecurity must always be examined as a social determinant of health for our most impacted low-income communities of color. At BWA, we advocate for mobility because every person deserves to move through their community safely and with dignity, regardless of their age, income, ability, neighborhood, or whether they own a car. Brockton is growing and changing. The question is not whether change will happen. The question is, will we plan for that change, or will we continue reacting after people have already been hurt? 15 years is a long time to wait. Our youth should not have to wait another generation. Our seniors should not have to wait. People with disabilities should not have to wait. Our families should not have to wait for another tragedy. The time to plan is now. The time to invest in mobility is now. And the time to build a safer, more accessible Brockton for everyone is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Green, you are the sponsor. Would you like to start?
Certainly. So I filed this resolve because it's really about safety and quality of life. Whether an individual is driving a car and walking to school, riding a bicycle, or taking public transportation and pushing a stroller, or simply crossing a street, one should be able to do that safely and efficiently across our entire city. I know that your organizations have been working together for quite some time, and I believe that you have some wisdom and some shared experiences and recommendations that you can offer to us as a city relative to how we plan and how we think about and how we approach transportation and safety across our city. So let me say thank you for the work that you continue to do across the city, and thank you for your patience tonight. The hour is late and you're still with us, so thank you so much for your indulgence and your patience. If you can share with us, just based on your work and your experience and what you've seen across the other city, different studies, and across what you've seen, for example, through the Champion Institute, what would you consider as some of the top priority actions that the other city can take relative to implementing and maintaining safe and equitable streets across the other city?
Yeah, I can take that. Thank you, Councilor Green, for having us here and making this resolve. I think we're all here because we stayed late because it's an urgent topic. We see the urgency on our roads. We hear it on the news. We see it on social media. We hear it from our friends. Brockton streets are basically chaotic, and it's a mess, and it's impacting economic development, it's impacting quality of life, and it has many ramifications. Even the fiscal health of the city is being impacted by our roads. So we need to act, and we need to empower those who have the abilities in our city to change the roads to act. That's the Brockton Transportation Commission. We need to make sure that they are taking action and that they have the tools, resources to do so. There are methods for changing the roads that are low cost and quick. And we should be making sure that that we're using those tools that are in the toolbox, that we're not limiting ourselves and not making those changes. So like high visibility crosswalks, daylighting, intersections, that's just paint and flex posts. We need to be able to use those, and we need our DPW to install them. We need to make sure that we're getting contractors that are putting flexible delineations out there to narrow our roads in certain places where people are walking, are biking, are going to school. We need to make sure that our roads are maintained, that we have the signs that are in place, that lighting is great, because these are like low-cost things that can go really long way in improving people's day-to-day quality of life, and can prevent loss of life. So I think it's important for us to think about, like, how are we using Chapter 90 money that is coming to the city. Today we looked at the funding that is coming to the city from the state. How are those revenues that is coming in, how are we allocating those appropriately? We need to ask these questions of DPW and to see, like, is there a better way for us to get the most out of these resources? It's gonna require political bravery, right? So this is not gonna be easy, changing the roads. People are used to a certain status quo, but that status quo has real world impacts on people's lives. So it's you as a body to make sure that the planning department, the DPW, all those who have the power to improve our roadways are doing that and are taking a safe systems approach and are thinking about complete streets. The City Council passed a complete streets ordinance back in 2016. It has clear recommendations and processes in place for us to make our streets safer. We have to actually make sure that we revisit that complete streets ordinance and make sure that we are living by it as a city. So currently, I would say we're not, and it's something that's really important for us to make sure. So those are the recommendations I have. And again, I think these are things that it's going to take bravery, but they're low cost and they're quick and they have huge ramification, good return on investment.
Thank you, thank you. So just to highlight the balance and the importance between addressing and really focusing on drivability across the other city, which I think we do all the time, but also balancing that equally with walkability as well, right?
Yeah, so like designing our roads for everybody to make sure that they're safe. If you make the roads safer for those who are the most vulnerable, you're making it safer and better for all the other road users. The majority of the crashes are impacting vehicles, and vehicles are hitting buildings, they're hitting each other. But if we design our roads and we use complete streets methodology, that is what the engineers and those who have dedicated their lives to studying this stuff, it makes a real impact for all road users. And we should be using the tools that have been proven themselves in other communities. For example, Somerville, they've gone 4 years without any fatalities on their roads by using these type of interventions. And we shouldn't limit ourselves and not use these things.
Well, I know the hour is late, so I will give opportunity to my other colleagues to ask questions as well. But I would like to bring you back at a later point when we have more time to really share with us some best practices from other communities and how those are being implemented relative to outer safety and the impact that is having on economic development as well.
Yeah, if I could just make one more point, and that's in regards to how we work together. And I think that's important for those who are civic organizations, community-based organizations, the advocates, you as the city council, the government. It's going to take this social infrastructure for us to see the changes in our physical infrastructure. We're going to need to be involved and activate our community to make sure that they are basically in the process of changing our roadways. Because if they're not, they will be frustrated. There will be some challenges on implementation. So we need to start building those social infrastructure pieces for us to do some of the implementation that we need to see on our roadways too. And OCPC and there's a lot of other entities that should be at the table to make sure that we are building these relationships and working together.
And I wanted to say something like that Jess Yolanda said, that it's important to work together because at the end of the day, there is more people that will be more impacted by this decision, but all of us, we are impacted somehow. So when you are making a decision for the community, you are making a decision also for yourself because safety not about the low-income community, it's about everyone. So it doesn't matter what kind of mobility we are using the mobility. Mm-hmm. So we are all impacted. So keep that in mind when you are making decisions to keep the streets safe, you are keeping yourself as well safe. So just do it for all the Brocktonians. Because we deserve this, and Brockton deserves to be the best city in Massachusetts if it is possible.
Thank you, thank you. Mary, I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything or add a few things, and especially in terms of your organization and your involvement.
Thank you, Councilor, and I will be very brief. I have, along with John Fay from my office, we've been participating. There have been modules. We were in Worcester. We did a walk audit, put our feet on the ground. In fact, there's a walk audit at the Kennedy School this Thursday. I'm putting a little plug in, but my staff is participating. So yes, we represent 17 communities. Our office is right across the street. on a daily basis, we see walking the crosswalk or parking or navigating within the city. So not only as a Brockton resident, but also those who are visiting, the modules and the experiences and the best practices. Somerville was just mentioned, but there's a ton of best practices out there. Old Colony Planning Council is often before the Traffic Commission with our road safety audit. And for those, whether it's been in Ward 4 or whether it's been in Ward 7, we provide, I'm not saying me, my staff, the staff, professional staff provide various levels of cost as well as relating for time frame. So time is money, but if there are some elements that the staff recommend, all of our road safety audits are available on our website. It has been shared with the Brockton Workers Alliance. We are in partnership with Walk Massachusetts. The nice part about all of this, including John Fay, we're Brockton residents. We live here, our families are here, we walk our grandchildren, we walk our kids, but we also drive, and I think that's the piece that all of you, as well as the citizens are looking for, is a safe community to live and to grow in. So that's what I would have to say. Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Farwell?
Just, I don't know if this is closing it off, but obviously improvements in lighting and roadways are important, but we have to have a consistent, concerted traffic enforcement program by the police, because I'm not convinced we have that now, either because of diminished personnel, but I can drive from my side of the city all the way over to Ward 6, and I don't see a cruiser with a vehicle stopped either for a red light or a stop sign. The next thing we have that really worries me, and we need to think carefully about it, are these electric bikes. I now see them whipping down bike lanes. Sometimes I would estimate it about 25, 30 miles an hour. I have about a 14-year-old kid who goes by my house from Braemore Road all the time. And honestly, if somebody's walking the dog or backs out of a driveway and doesn't look, we're gonna have a problem. So legislatively, I think we need some controls, but finally, I think funding. Mary, you and I have talked a lot about transportation planning and traffic safety and everything else. We should build upon an organization that is already highly successful and established, and that's OCPC. And I think in this next legislative session, wherever you may be, or even before you leave us in retirement, let's try to get some additional funding for OCPC. Let's really make a concerted effort to do that, because it will yield big dividends over a period of time.
If I could, Councilor, to that last point, as you know, we stole Paul Umano from the city of Brockton, and he has generated millions of dollars to the organization for across the board. We continue to do that. Yes, Brockton is where we're located, but we have 16 other communities as well. But again, the roads don't stop at borders. Avon and Brockton and West Bridgewater and Brockton, East Bridgewater and Brockton, Whitman and Brockton, Avon and Brockton. Like, if we're not working together for the safety, but to the point is, we will be always assertive in our funding. And the last piece that I will say is engagement. Councilor Tavares had just sent me a note where she's going to be having a ward meeting. It will be important that we from Old Colony Planning Council are there to talk about these issues. So anyone who is looking to do a ward meeting, we'd be more than happy. I know not just myself, but also with Samara and Yolando as well. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Councilors, their motion.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion is recommended favorably.
Thank you, councilors.
Everybody. Councilors, that is the end of our agenda. Does anyone have a moment of personal privilege? Seeing none, we are adjourned. I thought you were kidding, Dave. I'm sorry. Councilor Texera.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to remind that we'll have a real estate committee tomorrow at 6 p.m. here in the City Council chamber. That will be 6 o'clock tomorrow, Tuesday the 18th. Thank you.
Counselor, my apologies. We are adjourned. Oh, wait, no, never. Oh, my God. It's 10:30. Counselor Tavares.
Well, I just plan to do my ward meeting on this month, 27. It's going to be 6 p.m. At unknown school, but I am going to be sending email to everybody because I was waiting for this. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anybody else?
6 p.m. Thursday.
Seeing none, we are adjourned.